Hey guys, good evening and welcome to a Twitter Spaces with me, Kalu Aja. I call it a special Twitter Space if you want to, because we normally hold this on a Saturdays, same time, 7 p.m. But today, because we have the policy or the economic policy presented by the APC presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we decided to hold a special session on Sunday just so we can dig into it and see what it's all about. So welcome wherever you're tuning in from. Hopefully there are no rules per se, just try to keep it clean if you want to contribute, right? A few things I would request though, if you haven't read the policy document, it might be a good idea to get it or to download it. It's called Renewed Hope 2023. So that way you can follow, right? Because there's no way you can contribute if you haven't read it. Second point is that this is not political, right? My page is strictly money, finance, economy, and all that. There are lots of people that are simply tuning in and following because they simply want to understand. They could be foes, they could be friends, but they just want to understand what this means, what is written in this document, and what they can do with it. Some might want to use it to praise, some might want to use it to pull down. That's really not our real issue. We want to talk about it. We did promise way back in January that as every candidate releases their proposals, we will of course go in and we will try to analyze it for you guys, which is exactly what we're doing. Atiku was the first to release something when he had this session at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, and we did a study on that, and we released it. It's on Twitter, it's on YouTube, so you can grab it and it's there. Tinubu has done his as well, hence we're also talking about it. When Peter Obi releases his, we will also go and talk about it as well. So just the rules, right, guys? We're just here to learn. So I'm just going to run through, maybe take 15 minutes, 30 minutes, run through what's written down, interpret it the way I see it. I'm not talking for the APC, I'm just speaking of the way I see it, right? And then if you want to come up and speak, of course, just request and I'll plug you in and then you can talk. And I'm going to start from the document has everything: education, health, economy. I'm just focusing on the economy, right? And I believe that starts from the page. Let me just make sure if you're following. We're going to start from page, give me a sec, guys. The economy starts from page 11 on that document. So let's get right into it, right, on what I picked up. The very, very first thing I want to comment is, yes, they were able to identify the problem with Nigeria. Very simply, at the very, very top, they say, yes, the Nigerian economy is, and I'm going to quote there, Nigerian economy is designed to export raw materials and import expensive finished products. That is true. Good identification there. That's what's wrong with the economy, or one of the things wrong with the economy, where we export raw materials, but we turn around and import stuff. So we're exporting cocoa, but we're importing chocolates. And a good way to look at this is look at the railways in Nigeria. The railway, we have two main lines in Nigeria. We have the one that goes all the way from Kaduna to Lagos. Then we have the one that goes as well, Maiduguri to Port Harcourt. Those are designed to take raw materials out of Nigeria. So they all go to the ports, they take raw materials inland, they take it out through the ports and it goes out, right? We don't have any railways in Nigeria that go horizontally, that go from Lagos to Aba or from, say, Kaduna to Ilorin. No, we don't have all that because the railways are designed by the British, and the British build them to export raw materials. I have asked many times, why has Nigeria since 1960 not built a horizontal railways? Many people think it's an attack, but the APC is now confirming what I've said, that we have no horizontal railways. We are designed for exports of raw materials. Our gas is exported raw, our crude oil is exported raw, then we import propane, then we import PMS. So that's the main thing wrong with the economy right there. Okay. Number two is they also then talked about that crude oil is the primary source of federal government revenues. Exactly. So those two things, I think, what's wrong with the economy. We make the Nigerian economy, the bulk of the economy comes from taxes, from non-oil taxes, the bulk of the revenues. But the foreign income, the foreign currency income is literally 80-90% crude oil. So once there's a recession globally, crude oil supply, crude oil sales goes down, thus it affects our ability to earn foreign reserves, and then what then happens is that we run into a deficit. So those two problems identified, fantastic, they got that right, kudos to them. Let's go down the line. They also identified, which I also think is good that they did that Nigeria's population is now urban. So at independence, they said 15% of the population was just urban. Only 50% was urban. Now, half of the population lives in Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kano cities. So we've gone from an agrarian society to a city or urban-based nation. Very, very important that you have this point, because it then determines how they want to then address this as they go along. Now it starts to get a bit interesting. And this point now is the main point that I think defines this budget, where I start to get a bit worried. They were also clear to say that they want to, we'll come back to this point. Let's come back to this point. The main place I would like us to focus on this APC roadmap is the part, it's on page, I want to make sure I give you guys that page so you guys can follow. It is on page 14, and this is where I think it starts to get very interesting. So in Nigeria, what happens in Nigeria is when we sell crude oil, right? In the past, let's say crude oil sells for $100, we get a lot of revenues, and based on $100, the government will do a budget on $100, increase salaries, and then spend. Then when oil prices fall to 50, what happens? We don't cut down our salaries. So we have a deficit right there. So we do the Udoji allocation, and we give all the civil servants a lot of salary increases. Then when crude oil goes down, those salaries are locked in, but the revenues are not locked in. So you have these deficits that are then baked into the budget year after year after year. If you're a private company and you had a company, right, that you gave your workers a bonus because they had a good year, and next year there was no bonus, you would not pay that bonus. But the Nigerian government will keep on paying the bonus as part of a salary, hence it's locked in. So when we then had Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, she came in a while back and she said, we've got to what we call immunize the income. That's the word used, the immunization of the income. What that means is that you take that income and you say, even though we get 100, we're going to assume a figure lower than 100 to give ourselves allowance, like a floor, to say, if oil sells for 100, we will put into the budget maybe at 50. So we're going to budget at 50. What happens to the other 50? We save it. So it goes to the excess crude account. So that excess crude account is income that has not gone into the budget because we have said the oil price in the budget is 50, not 100, right? Now, that's what we then have the budget, where you hear the oil benchmark and you hear the excess crude. That's where that comes from. So whenever we do the budget, if the oil price is, say, $80, Nigeria will say we're going to take our price at maybe $50, which means we're going to put the 50 as revenues. The extra 30 goes to the excess crude account. So we've immunized ourselves that the oil can go from 80 to 70 to 65, but because we have it at, say, 60 or 50, it's sort of like we can work with that, we can plan with that. This document by the APC, page 14, is saying they're going to scrap that excess crude arrangement. They don't say it in actual terms, but they say they are going to stop that methodology of linking the annual budgets to the dollar value of projected oil revenues. So the APC is saying that going forward, right, we will not have the excess crude and we will not link the budgets to the dollar price of crude oil. What will they then do? They say they are going to essentially, just like the European Union has done, they will suspend limits on government spending, which means they're going to base the budget based on what they want to spend, not based on the revenues they are getting. Let me say it again. The APC is saying they're going to spend money based on what they budget to spend, not based on the revenues they are going to get. Right now, if you look at the 2023 budget, the revenues are minuscule. They are maybe about 1 trillion, but we're spending about 16 trillion. What's the difference? We are borrowing, we are printing money to make up that revenue side, but we are still capped to the oil benchmark in the budget. Under the Tinubu administration, they will take away that cap, which means if they want to spend 50 trillion, they can spend 50 trillion because there will be no cap on spending. The budget will be based on what they want to spend, no oil benchmarks. This means they have to go in and change the medium-term expenditure laws, which is already a law passed. They have to go in and fix that. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. But this is what they plan to do, right? Great. So this is page 14, guys. And on that page, then says because they can spend as they like without a cap, they are going to hire millions of unemployed Nigerians to modernize national infrastructure. So again, I'm quoting from the actual act. This is what's in the document, right? They're going to partner with public-private enterprises, with CBN, with Federal Ministry of Finance and other guys to give credit guarantees to attract more private sector investments to do this infrastructure project of guys. Okay, so we're just going to keep on going down. Let's talk about taxes. What do they want to do with taxes? This is the quote now. They want to review the corporate tax system, right? They want to plug harmful loopholes, make it more progressive, which means if you earn more, you will pay more. Nothing wrong with that, but they say they want to plug the loopholes and make it more progressive. Then they say they're going to tax luxuries and they're going to have higher tariffs on luxuries. Nowhere in the world do luxury taxes work. It's been tried in America, it's been tried in France, it's been tried in Nigeria. Anywhere you tax luxuries, it never works. That's why you see the world today doing a global minimum tax so that you can't dodge, right? Because once you tax rich people, they have lawyers, they move capital. Capital is mobile. So if you're going to tax luxuries, it's been tried, it always fails. Then they say they're going to incentivize international companies to then do setup in Nigeria and then produce locally for the Nigerian market, right? He then says that the Tinubu government will deploy the same tax skills used in Lagos for the federal government. This is very, very vague to me. Does it mean that the federal government will then appoint maybe Alpha Beta Corporation, which is the same company that does taxes in Lagos? Will we pay Tinubu's company 10% to collect federal taxes? Is that even constitutional? I'll just leave that there, right? Let's come to government spending. They want to cap government spending. They want to put a cap on government spending. Remember that they've removed the cap on general spending, but on government spending, they want to cap just on building. So if you're building a government, if you're building a building for the government and the salaries of elected and senior officials, they're going to cap it. That's what they say here. So if we're building a new head office, they'll give you a cap. If you're hiring a government official, your salary will be capped. If you're an elected official, your salary will also be capped. Let's get into the weeds, guys. Monetary policy. This under one where this is, you have to pay attention to what they are saying here. Under monetary policy, this is page 18. They make this sentence here that says that things are useless, but when you attach money to them, they become useful. What they're trying to say is this: when you take an unemployed person, he is a quote unquote, he's not a part of the economy because he cannot spend. So he's not useful, not a useful part of the economy. But when you attach, and they're quoting here, a living wage or capital investment, then that idle person becomes valued and productive. If you tie this back to the initial statement they made about removing the cap on spending, you then see where the government is going. That they're going to remove the cap, they're going to spend trillions, they're going to borrow trillions, and they're going to employ a lot of Nigerians, pay them a wage that makes those workers become quote unquote productive because they can now spend. Well, not just an analysis, guys. I'm not just giving you what they wrote. I'll analyze this for you pretty soon. So this is what they are saying, monetary policy, that's page 18. And then, of course, let's come to exchange rates. This is another one that scared me. They are saying with the exchange rate, this is page 19, and I'm quoting here, it cannot be ignored nor left to the vagrancies of an unrestrained market, which means that they are going to manage the exchange rate of Nigeria, because they are saying right here, our economic policies will be guided by desire for a stronger, more stable naira, and they are saying they will not leave it to the vagrancies of an unrestrained market. On inflation, that's one part I think I agree with them 100%, and they got right that the inflation in Nigeria is not caused by demand, but it's caused by lack of supply. So what they're saying is that rice is not expensive because people want to buy rice. No, the rice is expensive because there's not enough supply of rice in the market. So if they increase supply of rice in the market, then the price of rice would go down. Guys, so this is page 20. Let's stop here and let me do a bit of analysis to you what I've read. I've read really deep. I don't want to go on about this, but essentially what they want to do is this. If you have the time, if you had the time to start to Google Delano Roosevelt, he was the president of the United States when the United States was in not a recession, a depression. So the US in the 1930s ran into a depression where you had falling wages, you had oversupply, you had unemployment. Literally, the economy, the US stopped working. They just stopped working. Things were bad. It's not a recession, a depression. We never had that again after then. And they elected this new president, and no one knew what to do. Back then, there were no federal banks, there was no SEC. All the stuff you see now didn't exist in 1929, right? So they had to wing it and determine what to do. So they did a lot of spending. They were literally hiring people. You dig a hole, you put sand back into the hole, and they pay you money. They were literally doing that because they wanted to give workers a job. Because if they give workers a job, the workers will go spend. And if you spend, then the shop owners will get money to then pay their rents and to pay for other stuff. In short, they want to kickstart an economy. This watch, if you do economics and you write this down, Keynes, 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 he talks about that the government can determine the direction of the economy by simply spending. So he says deficit spending. You spend more than you earn because you want to jumpstart the economy. If a car stops working and you want to make that car work, what do? You jumpstart the battery. You take another battery, you connect wires to it, to your own car battery, then you jump it, or you push it and you jump it. That's what Keynes is talking about. You jumpstart the economy by the federal government printing money and spending to jumpstart the economy. So it was during Delano Roosevelt's administration that you had all those roads being built, you had dams, you had people being employed in the millions of Americans being employed. You had handouts being given. If you were in World War I, the American government gave you a cash handout. You had the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission was formed. The Social Security Administration was formed. All this is what we call today big government, right? So the thinking is that because the private sector cannot do it, the government has got to do it. The problem is that in the 1920s in America, what they were going through was a deflation. They weren't going through an inflation. The prices in America were going down because they had an oversupply. In the 1920s, America found fertilizer. So all their farms became profitable. They were overproducing. And because they were overproducing, the prices of food started to fall. And because food prices started to fall, no one was buying, so no one was making money. There was no investment. That's what's happening in Japan today. Their problem was not inflation. The unemployment was not caused by inflation. It was caused by too much supply. one of the things they did was to create cartels, legal cartels, that restricted the supply of farm produce into the market. So American government was paying farmers to destroy output so that prices would rise back up. In Nigeria's case, we're not there yet. The economy today is bad, but we're not at the point that you cannot fix the economy without spending trillions, removing the cap on spending, and employing millions of Nigerians. The misread is that someone is looking at America and saying America had a depression, they did this, they spent money, they employed people, and then they were able to get themselves out of the depression. If we come to Nigeria and we also print money, print Naira, and spend and hire Nigerians and deploy them to fix infrastructure, we will also take ourselves out of that depression. That, I think, is a misread because it's a different scenario. If you print Naira and you fix the foreign currency, where do you get the dollars from? If you employ all these youths, 10 million youths, and you are paying them a salary, do you not disincentivize the private sector from then being the employer of labor? The government cannot employ, it can only redistribute. This is where I feel we're missing. I think it's a wrong diagnosis. We're diagnosing chemotherapy for a patient that has malaria. Just my view, guys. Let me get guys that want to speak. I'm going to add you guys real on, and then we can take it on. Just my take, guys, and I had to stop there. I could have gone on about this proposal. Just, I can give you one example. Agriculture. Their proposal for agriculture is to fix prices. That's not the solution. The problem with agriculture in Nigeria is not prices, it's supply. Rice is not available. If you fix the price of rice, it doesn't change anything. You can fix the price of rice at 10 naira or 10,000 naira. It doesn't fix supply. Rice problem is supply. If there's more supply, then the price of rice will come down, inflation would come down, CPI would come down, then interest rates would come down. Millennium, good day, sir. Millennium Capitalist, Oladayo Tinubu. How are you, sir? You got the floor.
Can I come back?
Sure, you can. Let me get Aki Forlabi, Comrade Blue. Good day, sir. Go for it.
Yeah, good day. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. I was just listening to you and I was smiling. When we're trying to describe the misread and the misinterpretation of the solution that was applied to a particular scenario and what we're trying to do, that's exactly my point as well. I mean, first off, where we would have a problem is the fact that we realize that our spending habit is still significantly dollar-based. You find a lot of people who still want to go out of the country to get medical assistance. How many things can we really make? How skillful is our workforce, right? So one of the main reasons why that idea is dead on arrival, I'm talking about removing the cap on spending and spend our way out of the problems that we have. One of the major problems we're going to have is that so many things that are required to fix us, we can't get them locally, and then we're going to need some sort of forex to be able to acquire them. I mean, that's just a simple way of looking at it. We're not going to have enough dollars. And, if you look at purchasing power parity, it will just be going right down the way of Zimbabwe, because we would need, when you sit down and look at, okay, so we want to spend our way out of the problems, what do we need? I think when you ask that questions, the answers, the right answers will start to pop up. And, within 15 to 20 minutes, you know that this idea cannot just work.
I don't think let me just say this. I don't think their solutions are that off. I just think it's a misread. I think if you say the problem today is spending, the federal government is overspending. We have the central bank saying they spent 20 trillion that was given to the federal government of Nigeria to spend. So whoever is going to be the president 2023 is going to have to pay back 20 trillion. On top of that, reading this document, we're going to spend maybe 3 times that. We're going to take that money to recruit youths. And there's a focus. They are very, very particular to say manual. When they go to agriculture and even when they talk about the spending in the location, they make sure they use the word manual because they want to employ people. So it's not an efficiency drive, it's an employment drive. Nothing wrong with that. That's what China did. But
I understand you. I understand you.
So
what I'm saying is that, so at the end of the day, there's an objective, there's something we want to achieve.
Yeah.
When you employ people, you engage them, it's such that you achieve a particular goal, right? So we want to be able to get people involved in agriculture. At the end of the day, we want to be able to feed ourselves. Let's look at Nigeria today. One of the reasons.
No, I got you. Let's get Blue. I want to get some other folks to speak. Yeah, I hear you. Let's get Kevin in here, right? Kevin, hi, how you doing?
Hi, Carlo. Good evening. How are you today?
Very, very well. Thanks for joining. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Very great stuff you're doing, and good evening to everyone. I heard something. I wanted to chip in my thoughts.
Go ahead.
You see, just 2 days ago, Moody's downgraded Nigeria local issuer rating from BA3 to B1.
Yeah.
Foreign issuer rating from B2 to B3.
Yeah.
4 steps to junk.
It's already junk. At B, it's already junk.
Exactly. Moody's cited political risk, single source of income, the fact that oil price at an all-time high, Nigerian government doesn't have any excuse for not having revenue to GDP ratio above 7.4%.
Yeah.
But what I find the most troubling, and I'll tell you what I find most troubling, and this is something that has been a subject of debates for the last couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, I remember when Zainab traveled to New York for the Nigeria International Investment Summit. She and Aki Adesina, the president of the AFDB, had a fisticuff on official strategy, where she said that Nigeria had not reached official responsibility crisis level of 40% to GDP.
Which is crazy.
So, which is very crazy. I mean, and President Aki challenged her on that, and she was like, our way or the highway. But then barely a week after, you come back to the markets and tell the markets that you're going to convert ways and means lending, which legally, by Section 38 of the CBN Act, should not exceed $450 million today.
Sure.
Yeah. And you violated that. It's at 22 trillion. You're going to convert all that money that the CBN gave to you. And if you check Section 38, subsections 3, you see it states specifically that every outstanding ways and means lending after advances, it passes 3 months, it becomes overdraft. So the federal government that has not been paid cannot be converted or repaid by promissory notes, because it's the same CBN you're owing that will need to guarantee it for you.
True. It's called monetizing your own debt.
Now she says she wants to convert that into 40-year government bond at 9% interest, which only PENCOM will agree to buy, because the federal government controls PENCOM anyway. So when you have a presidential candidate and the incumbent candidates, for example, saying that there is no limit to quantitative easing, because that's what he's saying.
True.
Basically.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the revenues to run the kind of budget deficits that he's proposing.
True.
And when he's saying that there's no limit to it, what he's trying to tell you is that he wants to turn himself into the U.S. Federal Reserve. Well, you cannot, because the U.S. Federal Reserve is the central banks in the world. Yeah,
but Kevin, it's very clear what they are saying. Whoever wrote this, right, is writing it to say, I told you so. They are not writing it in English. You have to understand what they are saying. But they are basically saying in this document that they are going to print trillions. They are saying that they are going to decouple revenues from oil revenue, which means they can say they want to spend 100 trillion. That's it. If they want to spend 100 trillion, there is no benchmark. That's what they're saying.
Let me tell you what is very interesting and worrying for me. And this was something I shared on Channels TV on Thursday morning. You see, if you remember the rule of 72 that is used to calculate compound interest and inflation, you realize that if you divide, if you put more trillions from ways and means lending into the markets, and inflation continues to heat up because cash supply is higher than production output, and the result is inflation. So you pick, for example, that 72 and divide by the current inflation figure of 20.77%. What do you get? What you get is that it takes 30 years, 4 months for the inflation to double.
Okay.
And every time inflation doubles, your exchange rate drops 100%. So running on deficits and printing so much cash that you don't have value for is simply saying that you're going to continue to prop up and run a higher inflation, have the CBN hike.
Yes, that's what they want to do.
FPR, to align the curve.
That's what they want to do.
Capital becomes more expensive and it becomes impossible for the private sector to produce.
Kevin, that's what they want to do, and I want to look at other folks in here, but what they want to do is to turn the federal government into the driver of the economy. They want to do what Roosevelt did. When Roosevelt was in charge, he drove investments and the direction of where money goes to, because the economy was in a depression. This is the point I'm making. We are not there yet. The Nigerian economy is suffering from stagflation, which is high interest rates, high unemployment. We are not in a depression. So why should the federal government print trillions and spend trillions and determine the direction of investments, driving away the private sector from the economy? That's what they are proposing. And I'm thinking we're not there. Kim, let me get some other guys to hop in here if you don't mind, right? Let me get Ose. Ose, hi. Kevin, hang in there. Ose, hi, go for it. Ose, underscore, hey, go for it. Can you unmute or go ahead? Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the, I'll call it brutal analysis. Sorry, I'm just coming down from a taxi. I'm just arriving from a trip. I'm curious. First of all, have you guys done the article manifesto?
Yes.
Thank God. But in all seriousness, thank you for the analysis. I think it was very honest. I was concerned myself when I read it. But I'll try and stay away from politics and just talk on the policies that concern me. Something I liked, I don't know if you spoke about it, was, they seem to have an ambitious housing plan. I don't know if they can afford it, but the idea of providing mortgages to every Indian Nigerian, I thought was a good one. But they really didn't explain the house. I don't know if you're able to.
On my analysis on the housing policy, I called it excellent. I had no issues with it. I think it was well written, very, very simple. On the entire housing policy was spot on. Nothing wrong with it. Just didn't give more details, but spot on. That's how I wrote it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. It pains me to say it, but I think that was the highlight of the manifesto for me. But there were other things that, considering our financial situation, are concerned me. For instance, a manifesto that talks about, launching a national carrier, a manifesto that talks about not continuing Buhari's social investment programs.
No, they said they will continue.
I don't know where the monies are going to come from.
Just be clear, Ose, they said they are continuing with it.
No, they said they will expand it.
Yeah, so that they are going to continue and blow it up. That's what they are, just to make sure people heard you well.
Yeah. So I worry about that. We're already bankrupt. I don't know where the money is going to come from.
They're going to print it.
They're going to borrow more money to.
They're going to print it. They're going to print the money. That's what they're going to do. There's a decoupling of the budget from from oil now. So they are spending based on their expenditure priorities. That's the wording.
Yeah. There was a bit of policy for me incoherence when they spoke about their energy policy. pursuing or they said they'll commit to Buhari's net zero plan by 2060, but then they're pursuing gas production. They're looking to quadruple oil production.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite understand how that was going to work. Are we pursuing net zero? Are we becoming, really looking to exploit our energy reserves? I wasn't really that clear on that either. And then finally, so I'm trying to find, I left some notes, just find it very quickly, was, I don't want to open my account, I'll just let the mic go for now.
All right, super.
I think that was just for me.
All right, super.
Really, subsidy leaving was fantastic. But some other things were very, very concerning.
All right, excellent. Let me get. Thank you so much. So let me get 316 here in here. 316 ID. Go ahead, sir.
I was looking at it more from if we are criticizing what they are offering, what are we proposing, or what do we think is best?
Not my job. Not my job. They are the guys running. They are running for office. They are running for office, right? So they present, we praise, we critique. Let me also give the praise. Very, very good point, sir.
Okay.
I felt the housing policy, they wrote it here, the housing policy, like I said, brilliant. I think it was okay. They wrote that. They also have something in here that they want to increase the devolution of powers and give states and local governments more money. Brilliant. The education plan, although that's not my space, STEM research is there, STEM spending is also there. I like that a lot. And like I said, their inflation policy, where they want to fight inflation by supply, also very, very good. They got that right as well. Just to be clear, I like the infrastructure to youths. I like the youths, employing them to infrastructure. What I don't like is how they want to pay for it. See, the document doesn't even have a lot of how we are going to pay for it. It has this what we will do. It doesn't really say how they're going to pay for it. You got the mic, sir.
Okay, so the problem of funding please persist for all the whoever is going to bring a policy document. I don't know. We don't have the funds. I was hoping that if they have savings from subsidy and all the oil leakage that we have, they will be able to fund some of the things they are saying. But that doesn't look like it. So my worry for this is the printing of money thing. I'm looking at what are going to be the consequences. Is that not going to put us into more problems? So that part of the policy document is not quite clear. Though you have explained it very well, but it's what I have always assumed, that they are going to print more money, which is also very worrisome. So there are some key points like you have mentioned, the infrastructure part, the building, employing more people and all that. Those are beautiful things to do, but none of them is saying how they're going to fund it, and that is very, very key. So we might have to assume, which is more like what you've explained, which is printing more money. So for that,
I mean, there's only one way you either borrow or you print, and we're doing it right now, so there's no difference. Let me get Mr. Shion Onigbide. Hi, you, sir. Go ahead, sir. You've got the floor. Thank you, 336. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. I hope you can hear me, Carl.
Very, very well. Very, very well.
Okay, good. So I think it's a continuation of what has been happening.
Sure. And
I think even as the year of budget, we've mentioned this several times that I remember that when President Buhari won, the first event we had at budget, we called it Finding Money for President Buhari, because we were very clear that the scale of ambition that he had, there was no resource to be able to handle it. And we had Yemi Kale, Femi Awoyemi, and a lot of eggheads then to think about a policy trust for the government. We submitted that to the VP and all that. But for me, I think that they've been big on the fact that they have to spend. And let's be honest, Tinubu is...
Your audio dropped. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, your audio dropped a bit.
Yeah, he's been very consistent on this position. I can point at least 3 to 4 articles or speeches that he has made that points to the fact that we cannot be constricted by
federal revenue to the scale of what we need to do. And the evidence is there in the last few years of how inflation, how deterioration of value. This evidence is also even there about the exchange rate, because when you print money and it's not backed by assets and you don't put it in the right places, what you end up doing is that there are a lot of naira in the circulation still chasing dollars, and there is no corresponding dollar on the other end for you to be able to import or for you to be able to use. So I put 20 trillion and I give it to Julius Berger, and Julius Berger needs to buy new machineries, and so people are going to make roads, and we don't produce machineries internally. And Julius Berger is looking for dollars to buy machineries, and there is no dollar on the other side, because I did not monetize the dollar I have before I can be able to provide naira to the circulation. There is a challenge in there, and I feel good out that everybody needs to, and I like the honesty in quote about this is what you have said. There are a lot of good things in the manifesto, I have to admit. Like the housing that has been mentioned, I feel that it was a bit elaborate. There was a lot of clear thinking around security to some extent. The agricultural part is also worrisome. There was a reason why commodity were abolished in the 60s. It was a cartel, it was a corruption spectacle. And because a lot of people in Ibadan then, maybe if I look at the Western region, would weigh cocoa and say your cocoa is substandard. Okay, give us extra money if you want us to upgrade the grading of your cocoa to grade A or to grade B. Or they will say, oh, they give you the wrong weight, and you walked all the way from Ekiti or from Mondo bringing cocoa to sell in Ibadan and all that stuff. And it was clear that as over time, farmers began to lose interest in the whole demand. For by the time we cut into the 70s, and everybody has even stopped cash crop production, and we now went heavily into the other crops. So for me, I figured out that being obsessed with those kind of ideas of price fixing, of us not driving efficiency, is a bit very, very dangerous.
Yeah, and sir,
whoever is thinking in that way needs to update their thinking, because those ideas are really, there's enough literature that these ideas just don't work.
Yeah,
a lot of conversation. You've always been a apostle of the fact that we have a spending problem. We have an spending efficiency problem. Very, very obvious. We also have and I also have to put a point that we have a revenue problem too. But the answer to our revenue problem is very, very well known. We can be a country of a $400 billion GDP, and we can barely even raise $35 billion annually as a federation. The answers are there, but we need to be honest and be bold about it. That's the question. So I think what I felt missing in my last point in the whole manifesto is that for someone who was big on taxation in Lagos, and we have to acknowledge that there was no key point around reforming the tax architecture.
True.
There was no strong point on that point, because until we reform the tax architecture in Nigeria, about how we collect personal income tax, how we collect CIT, how we incentivize CIT, how we collect VAT, how we incentivize that, how we bring informal systems into formalization structure and incentivize. Until we're able to do that, there's no way we're going to get out of the low percentage revenues that we have. I'll put a stop at that. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just also take you up and just say that, again, he has been very, very clear. I heard him on a speech some time ago saying he was going to print more Naira. I think that was during COVID. He said, print more Naira and spend. I heard him say it. I didn't take it seriously. Now I know he's pretty serious about printing Naira. And every nation prints. The US has printed. The EU has printed. Every nation prints currency. Like you said, the issue is not the printing, but the backstop. If you print, you have increased taxes one way or the other, because we are going to pay for that print. That print, where is it going to go to? If we say we're going to use that money and employ kids to fix roads, kids can't fix roads. Julius Berger can fix roads. You can employ the kids to do gutters and to work, but if Berger says that they have a machine that can do 20 kilometers a day, from the policy document, they are looking at manual labor. I read two parts, in agriculture and in the infrastructure part. We're talking about manual. They want to do this great New Deal arrangement where people are employed and giving youth. I'm just worried that is more recurrent than capital base. Again, with agriculture, their solution is to fix prices, not liberalize prices, allow the currency to float. Another big thing there in this document, the currency is not going to float. They want to, quote unquote, not leave it to the vagaries of the market. I see a lot of issues ahead coming with this. That's just my take. Okay, let's get White B here for your play. Good day, sir.
Good day, sir. For me, I've read documents and I have no problem with documents because personally, I believe in big government. I believe we have a lot of unemployed Nigerian youths. I think, if we're not mistaken, we have close to 60 million Nigerians that are unemployed. What other way do we have to employ those people than this way? The government has to lead the way, then private individuals will take over. For me, it is perfectly spot on. I want people to get employed. When it comes to manual labor and agriculture, that is the only way. I am opposing mechanized farming right now because I don't think that is where we are. If it's just semi-mechanized farming, I am fine with it. But we need to get more than enough people in the farms, getting products out, getting things right. That's why I stand. So I totally agree with the policy document. I have no problem with it. People are laughing. I have no issue with printing more money. We need to do that right now. That's where we stand. We can argue all we want. We have been doing things in a certain way over a long period of time. And we are going down the hole. Nothing has changed. We keep hearing experts telling us, oh, let's go this way, peg it against the naira, do this against this. But it doesn't work. That is my own stand. So I'm totally with the policy document. I think that's the way to go. I agree with you that we are not in the same place the US was in 1940, but I've always thought about it that was the only way to push Nigeria through whatever they're going through. Print more money, get people involved, more manual labor. That's what I will encourage, more manual labor. I know people will say, oh, we should look towards technology and whatnot, but right now isn't the time. We have 250 million Nigerians. Technology cannot employ a lot of people. There are downsides to having technology. You just said something about Julius Berger now having a machine that can build 20 kilometer digs or whatever they need to do. We need people to take that job, to do that thing, get paid, be productive, tax them, and get more money for the economy. So I might be wrong, you might disagree with me, but I totally agree with it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I respect your contribution. And again, nobody's here to say if you are wrong, we should laugh, or if you're wrong. No, I think it's going to be I like what's going on right now because we have a left-leaning progressive agenda on the table now. The article on was, I think it was middle of the table. If I haven't seen the Peter Obi one. If it comes out, we might have something else to weigh it against. But like you said, a progressive government, big government wants to employ people. They don't want mechanized. They want people in the farms, in the roads. They want manual industrialization. They want North Korea. They want China. They want Vietnam. They want people working in those mass fields to create employment so that there is wages and that they can kickstart the economy. That's the thinking. No problem with that. We're really worried about maybe the implementation more or less. But I hear you, White. Just hang in there. Let's get Jay. Jay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. The policy definitely inspires us. I believe it's something to look up to. I look forward to what would happen, but it's scary, especially given the impact that the policy may have on the naira. So I'm assuming that we may be going towards the actual devaluation of the naira if they in fact go ahead with the policy.
Devaluation. You are saying devaluation. They are talking about massive devaluation. That's out of the window already. If you hear where they are going to, then the naira value. I don't want to give numbers, but this is going to be I don't want to give numbers, but what they are proposing is this, right? Naira will maybe 1 to 1,000, something like that. But you have a lot of naira, and you are going to buy local products. They're going to think of your brand that you buy that is foreign. They're going to make that foreign brand come to Nigeria and produce locally and sell to you, so that you take your huge naira and you buy it in Nigeria. You don't import. That's what they are going towards, right? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I believe so. And I think perhaps maybe the spending and how to employ youth may be leaning towards their mortgage plan, because I can see that they are trying to really expand housing supply and to make sure there will be a lot of construction going on. So perhaps that's where the manual labor of employing 50 million youth will come in. So I think we should start taking it very serious when it was campaigning for, okay, we're going to hire 50 million youth. It may be it may be a serious thing. It may be something that they are pushing towards. So I see the policy as something that is very hopeful, but currently our economy defies the Phillips rule. We have high inflation, we have high unemployment. So I'm not sure how we're going to push towards an economy whereby we're increasing inflation with the hope of driving down unemployment. That's counterintuitive, but it's bold, and I would like to see it happen. I'd like to see the outcome. Maybe if it works, it will be very good for Nigeria, and if it doesn't, well, maybe the mic.
Thank you so much, sir. Let me get Akin. Akin, how are you doing? Akin, please go ahead, sir. It's okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually would like to speak parts of this.
Akin, please speak up a bit, yeah? Thank you.
I like a few of those, and he, especially with regards to the education parts, about raising the education qualifications and requirements for teachers. I think it needs to be national. So I think that's one. Then I like the fact that he's now talking about, people are now talking about housing as something that should be expanded, the housing stock. However, the vast majority of these proposals are just economically suicidal, because I hear people talking about big government, you want big government here, big government that. We shouldn't forget that in the 1930s, America had the largest economy in the world. It had the reserve, or was close to having the reserve currency of the world at that time. So there's certain things that the US can do or could do then that no developing country has that kind of privilege afforded it by the world to do. So for instance, they're talking about how they want to limit importation of things. First of all, if you divide our imports by the population, we actually don't import a lot ahead in Nigeria. It's not that large per se. So that's another problem. The industrial policy just seems to me not well thought through. Everything is about lending, giving credit to this thing, giving credit to that, giving credit to this, giving credit to that. The reality is, if we are serious about industrial policy in Nigeria, which I think it needs to be creation of industrial parks, especially industrial parks in the south of the country. The northern Nigeria in so many ways is structurally disadvantaged, both by geography and also by the level of education in the north, to be able to really take advantage of this good industrial policy. So I just feel that it wasn't really well thought through.
Isn't that a bit sweeping?
And another thing too that I have to say is that Nigeria, generally speaking, I know this may sound a bit political, but some of our best governments, at least let's talk about the Obasanjo and Jonathan government, have actually really been right-wing governments that have been interested in expanding supply, liberalizing markets, expanding supply. That is what Nigeria needs. It's not this left-wing big government should come in and fix things. And okay, we're talking about hiring more and more people in agriculture. Do you know what that will do to agriculture? It will even push down the productivity of an already comatose sector that we have in agriculture. Or you just want to do manual manufacturing, or you want to do manual construction of infrastructure. It's a disaster in productivity terms. That will mean we'll have millions of Nigerians on low-paid jobs, and that will not still solve the insecurity problem, because low-paid people will look for other ways of surviving, especially in a high inflation environment, which this would cause.
Yeah.
So we need to seriously think and not just say a lot of big grammar and everything.
Yeah.
The economic implications are terrible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I can just to make the point again. I hope you understand what is being proposed. Like, you are going to employ 20 million people. How much do you think they're going to be paid? Are you going to pay them 200,000 a month or 50,000 naira a month? It's going to be N power on steroids. So all these folks, some will be sent like NYSC to the roads, some will go to the farms, some will go to teach, but they're all government workers. That's what's going to happen. So now then you say we have eliminated unemployment in Nigeria. That's going to be what they're going to say. How did China eliminate extreme poverty? China is a communist nation. Why didn't they do a communist economy? They did, and they had a famine. Then they changed to a capitalist economy, and then they eliminated extreme poverty via capitalism. Their president he said, it doesn't matter if the cat is white or black, let it catch mice. The point is, if you want to solve poverty, you've got to make people earn money. If people just earn 50,000, 60,000 a month, and then inflation is 20, or you have no supply, then we're still back at stage one. It might take, right? Monday, hi, let me hear you out, sir. I've got Ade Sonia Ibuku. Hi, go for it, sir. Monday, you've got the floor. Monday?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So, regarding this economic policies, I think, or the policy documents, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. There are a few good points. There are some bad, in my own view, what I would consider bad plans, and then also there's just no actual time frames or timelines given to most of their quote unquote plans. That also poses a sort of concern on my own end here. Then also we look at some of the policies, everybody has mentioned the housing. I also believe the housing policies is actually a good one to start with. Then somewhere inside that document they mentioned something around the reform of the Land Use Act. I would like to see, that coming to play if it gets into government. Then along the lines of education, there were some good points, not something I'm totally convinced about, but also regarding this mass employment, I also have concerns about it. It's not just about, the nature of the jobs you are offering to people out there. It's also about, relevance in a sense, global competitiveness, so to speak. We can't keep saying we want to develop as a nation if we're not trying to be globally competitive. You can't, then also, you mentioned something that gave me some sort of worries about explicitly decoupling or removing this Naira expenditure and dollar inflows. As a developing nation, I don't think that is, and when you mentioned it, you made reference to European countries. You look at the European countries, the EU, and you notice that you can understand that these nations are well ahead of Nigeria. If you are looking at separating the dollar inflows and Naira expenditure for a country like Nigeria, where I don't even think there's any sort of global demand for the Naira. Whereas that's why I was trying to explain to a friend of mine. I said, show me one person outside Nigeria who wants Naira. I'll show you 1 million people outside the US who want the dollar. That alone already puts us at a sort of disadvantage in that sense. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Because if you look at it, you can't just say you want to push out money like that without a demand for it.
I hear you, Monday. I hear you. I mean, it's we're just saying what we see is good and what is bad in the policy so that folks can understand what they're getting into. Millennium, I've got Millennium Capitals. Are you back, sir?
Yes, thank you very much, Carl. So I will just speak on a few points because I know a lot of people have addressed some other business, but I will just. So concerning the agriculture, I don't know. There's a sort of inconsistency in Tinubu's so when he went to the northern, I think their councils, this invitation, when he was talking about this commodity, he was saying commodities exchange. Now, in the policy document, they are talking about commodity bonds. Now, there's a big difference here. Commodity bonds are like price fixing entities. Then commodities exchange are price discovery entities. Now, what's the difference? Commodity bonds, for example, now, the reason why they fail is because there's something called the agency problem. Now, in governance, right, the agency problem speaks to the two parts of the equation, which are the agents, right? Then the principal. For example, in this case here now, the stakeholders or the principal here is the government and the people, right? Then the agents are the people who earn those marketing bonds. So the agency problem speaks to the fact that the incentives of the agents are completely different from the incentives of the the goals of the agents completely different from the economic goals of the principal themselves. So the agents are there serving their own interest, right? So there is a moral deficit there, that the agents themselves have incentives to do what favors them rather than what is advantageous to the broader economy. So that's the reason why those marketing boards became very common, right? They tell people to bribe them for them to increase their risk.
You are more for the exchange than the boards.
Yes, these are the things that happened with the extreme. So here now too. Then look at commodity exchanges, for example, is where people come and trade receipts. They don't trade goods there, right? You just have speculators, and you also have what they call it, investors who help these farmers, right, to fix to be able to lock in specific prices so that they won't be too exposed to the vagaries of the free market. So here also we should know that left-wing policies are not that bad in the sense that government regulation is also needed, because the free market, like I can't say, in the 1930s the US had a deflation where the government had to step in. So the government is also very important, and for a growing economy like Nigeria's, we need the government. In fact, we need a lot of government intervention. But the issue here is, how will they pay for these things, right?
That's the question.
Another issue here is
Millennium, I gotta make you round up very quick, so I can get us in.
Yeah, I'll round up very quick now. Inflation management here. So I want to draw people's attention. There is this interview that Bismarck Rewani did on Arise TV, where he spoke of where they did their own internal analysis on Nigeria's inflation numbers and what exactly causes it. A lot of people will actually be surprised that he said when they did their own internal multiple regression analysis, multiple regression analysis is that you take a piece of a set of independent variables, right? Independent variables like currency exchange rates, right? Things like CBN ways and means. You also take things like what else? A lot of things like inflation depends on, like food prices. Things like insecurity, the effect of all those things on production. So you take all those things, right? You now compare those things, like look at the correlation between those things and then inflation itself and see which one contributes the most. You'll be surprised that he said their own analysis found out that more than 70% of it was linked to deflation of the currency, devaluation of the currency. So it means that because we are we still do more importation and we import a lot of our food because our local production is not as efficient as possible. So
Sorry, you dropped off, Millennium? I think you dropped off, sir. But I think great point you've talked about, Mr. Rewani's study about the deflation, linking that.
These imports that we did, where that means CBN ways and means contributed just 3% to inflation, even with the 20 trillion that are printing and all of that. So we need to be very careful.
Millennium.
In the sense that
hello,
government needs to
Millennium. Millennium.
Yes.
Sorry, you dropped off.
Focus more on.
Hello, sir. You dropped off a bit. Could you repeat the part about the contribution to inflation? You said ways and means was only 3%. What was the main driver of inflation in Nigeria?
That's what the Rewani said. Like that their analysis actually showed that ways and means only contributed 3%.
Okay.
Right, to inflation.
What was the other contributor?
So the rest of it was now food inflation, our production not being enough, insecurity, and all of that is the one between the 70-something% and the 3%. So that's around like probably 20-something%. So we can now see that this exchange rate is a big factor liberalize this exchange rate. And this their
Okay, I got you, sir.
Targeting management where they want to want to like float the currency completely. Of course, Augusto, they released the reports of this and they're saying, suggesting that the inflation, the deflation, the currency management evaluation should be inflation targeted, right? Like they should adjust it, probably devalue the currency by 15% every year. So it's still sort of market target, but it's still managed, so it doesn't expose the economy too much. It's sort of like a sweet spot in the middle.
Gotcha.
Between free floating and extreme management that the CBN is doing currently. So that's that about
important points, especially about the fact that it's food that is driving inflation. Food, land, food, insecurity, credit. So yeah, let me get folks to hop in if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Fortune EK, Fortune, you've got the mic, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Carlo.
How you doing?
Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening, everybody. So basically, looking at the document, I myself have studied it. Great points on housing, great points on education, but again, it's the issue of funding. So I'll go the solution way. I think printing money is not the best for us at this time, owing to the fact that when you print, you cannot equate that value. You cannot give equal value for whatever amount you've printed. So I think the government should look towards production. And again, you can't say you want government to be the biggest spenders, because when government is the biggest spender, it doesn't really alleviate poverty. What you have is people managing their lives. For instance, you have people employed and they go into the field to do manual labor, and they are not well paid, like you highlighted. I don't want to go into all of that. So the best way to go about that, yes, you can employ people. I think it's the same strategy the governor of Ebonyi used. I think when he first entered office. So what he did was to employ more people into the ministries and then bought machines.
But that's the same thing as that. Isn't that the same thing that they are saying, that they want to? If the government cannot create a job, let's get that point clear. No government, the U.S. government, the Nigerian government, no government can create a job. All the government can do is to tax you and to take your money and quote unquote create that job. So the money comes from you. So why don't you just simply tell the private sector and say, you create a job and I'll give you a tax credit. So instead of the government employing people, why don't you tell Julius Berger and say, if you want to build this road, you have to employ 20% more workers than you would have employed. So it's Julius Berger employing, and then you say, because you've done that, we're going to give you a waiver at the port, we're going to give you a waiver on taxes. Why don't we do it that way? You can't employ that.
So see, the problem we have, and it's a key problem here. The problem is that those contracts are overinflated. So you are giving Julius Berger the job. At the same time, you've overinflated it by government people who will pay Julius Berger times 10 of what they should have actually gotten, and then decide to kickbacks. So it's not enough to say employ people to use these people to do this job. It's actually one, arresting our productivity and pumping it up. That would be the first point any government should do. So productivity in terms of what you can produce locally, which you can only do by improving machinery and the efficiency within your production elements. So that is one. The second one would be in checking the cost of governance. So checking the cost around inflation of contracts, cost around having a large focused government, cost around spending where, like you've always highlighted, we have a spending problem. So we put the money where it should go, or where the economy should be looking at. And then in terms of managing the naira, I don't believe in pegged exchange rates. I think it should be free flow the market should determine the rate of the naira. I think our exchange rate should be subject to demand and supply. So what we have is that we have a greater demand level for the dollar than we have the supply in the market.
Okay.
And that is what is driving the numbers.
I hear
If
you.
you can arrest these three things, I think it looks better. But again, sorry, just the point. So they are driving towards granting mortgages. But who will pay for those mortgages? People who are employed to do mechanized farming.
Yeah.
Or people who
I think you are fortune. You are hitting the fortune.
They can't achieve it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I think you are hitting the point I'm getting to, right? And I'm saying if you pay people money to do roads and employ them, all that demand that's going to be created, can they afford it? This is the point again. If you don't allow the private sector create jobs and pay for those jobs by the interplay of demand and supply using skills learned, right? And you create that job, where will the demand come from? How many of those boys that you're going to employ to build the roads can afford the house? Waziri, where's Mr. Waziri? Good day, sir. I have you. Hey, how are you doing? You have the floor. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. I've looked a little bit at that brochure, and I can say that there are some ambitious numbers there. Some are realistic. But what I want to talk about, which is what I think was omitted, was our population explosion. The way Nigeria is going, anybody that is planning the economy of this country and is not looking at our population, I think the person is going to miss it. And that's what has been happening. So when you look at the rate of growth of our population, we have about 2.4% yearly. And if you look at the population of 200 million, you are looking at perhaps around 6 million to 8 million every year. You know, if the government does not look at this figure and plan with this, it's going to be very difficult. If you look at the way, the way they said that the unemployment is going to go down, it means that the government is trying to create 6.5 million jobs every year. It looks radical to me. Even at the height of the highest prosperity in the US, we could create only 2.25 million jobs per year. And that's the country that is mature with a lot of resources. In Nigeria, I don't know how we are going to do it, and nobody is actually really talking about it. Between 2015 to now, 2022, our population increased by 34 million. That is more than the population of Ghana. Between year 2000 and 1990, our population increased by more than 100 million. It can't, it's not possible. When you look at other countries of the world, there is none that is doing well today that has rate of population increase of more than up to 1%. You know, so when you look at it, and nobody is really talking about this. If you continue growing this way, I don't know the kind of resources we are going to be able to generate to take care of our population. How many people are entering the labor market on a daily basis?
Yeah.
You know,
good point.
Now, we have 3 million jobless people, unemployment. If you create 4 million jobs per year, which is unrealistic, in 8 years' time, we will still have about 50 million that are unemployed. You know, so I don't see us, being able to do have a good economy where things become cheaper. You know, things are going to get more expensive every day because demand is going to be more. And our rate of production, even the rate of production, cannot actually match the rate of the rise in population.
Yeah, and again, Mr. Waziri, let me just be fair. To be fair to them, they did talk about this. That they talk about the urbanization And they gave an insight that they want to grow the GDP faster than the rate of growth of population. But then again, they also exposed, this is very, very lazy from them. In page 13, I saw there's a GDP table there on the page 13, where all they did was they just added 10% year on year. That was whoever did that was pretty lazy. So solid points you are making, and I guess that's why they want to employ a lot of Nigerians. And you do this sort of things when the economy has crashed, when the Americans were paying workers to dig holes and fill the holes back because there was no job anywhere. The economy had crashed completely. How can you tell a guy an unemployed Nigerian is a guy that has maybe gone to university, he has a BSc or an NDE, right? He knows computer science. He's on the internet. He has friends in Canada. He has friends in the UK. You tell him to go wear a jacket and to fix the roads. I hear you. You're going to say there's dignity in labor. I hear you. But that guy's aspiration is a lot higher. It's a lot higher. There has to be a bit more innovation in how you can employ younger people with real wages. There is no way the government is going to pay you a real wage, guys. Even the workers working today in the federal ministries, ask them what their wages, even with pensions. Compare it to workers in banks, in oil companies, in startups. Compare it. And then they're going to employ you. Are they going to pay you a pension when you're in that mass of people? So I'm not really sure about that. Let me get Ibrahim. Ibrahim, Mr. Waziri, thank you so much. Ibrahim, you got the floor, sir. Yeah. Ibrahim, please, you got the floor. Go ahead. I keep Ibrahim going once, Ibrahim going twice. Ibrahim, I'm going to take you off. I'm not hearing you speak. I'm just quickly add folks here. All right, Olumide, hi. What's up with you? Go ahead, sir. Olumide.
Yeah, good evening. Interesting conversation. Actually, I wanted to add some color. We ignored key sectors here: the blockchain, the market, and I think the manifesto, the document should have explained how to convince OPEC that they will be the players that would increase capacity by 2.5 million barrels a day in 5 years' time, and almost 4 million barrels per day in 2030. When considering the fact that the world is going away from fossils, you could see that because of what's happening in Ukraine, Russia, that the European Union saved about $11 billion on renewables. So I think that number needs to be checked on. And also, we should also look at the fact that the document was quiet about petrochemicals investment, how they could really look at the petroleum industry that has been really lacking. Then on the blockchain, you see a party that really did not support the crypto industry for the past 7 years. How would you send it to the National Assembly that in the past you've ignored banks from aligning with crypto, and the inner functionality. We knew why the inner was brought to existence, and some of us even clamored for it despite pressures and anger by growing Nigerians seeing it as anti-Bitcoin. But you've not used it to solve the desired needs of the Nigerian people. Corruption still remains major order of the day. We not spoke about accountability, how you save the country's resources. So the automation of the blockchain and things like that were not highlighted. It was fake. I also want to talk about the capital markets. We're talking about the fact that foreign remittance, strategic FX control, our market has been suffering. If you look at present bond market subscription, it was undersubscribed by 50%, telling you that the bond market is already getting under pressure. Now we have the government that is talking about printing money excessively. Is it their mandate? Is it not a monetary policy mandate that they should really leave it to and concern more about creating jobs and providing the proper environment? So those are things I wanted to highlight, Carl. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. And especially again, this is the theme, really. The theme of the whole proposal is they put a banner headline there. If you take a look at page, I think that's 53, you see sports, entertainment, and culture. They put it there. They talk a lot, but then you go to the solutions. It's really it's buzzwordish. We will establish a media city. Okay. We will tax regime will be applicable. Okay. We will, there's no drill down. There's this particular sector, sports, entertainment, and culture. This is a money maker if you know what you're doing. Nigeria has passed the digital TV license. We have digital license in Nigeria is passed. We have blockchain. We have stars. What's his name? That guy, Wizkid, Burna Boy. Those guys make 500,000 per show. A smart administration is going to look for a way to say, how can we protect the intellectual property of Burna Boy, tag it to Nigeria, and sort of create that if you download music from Burna Boy, Nigeria gets a cut, Burna Boy gets his whole money, but we're able to promote Nigeria. Just the same way the US government uses Hollywood. Watch any film from Hollywood that uses that from Hollywood. They use the US military hardware. In exchange, they have to talk good about the US military. So you can't watch any movie from Hollywood that shows military in bad light. Once you see that, like Oliver Stone, he's not quote unquote Hollywood. So this is the thing about this, the document that I also don't like. It's like they go to every sector and say, okay, let's take that box, sports and culture, and we'll take it. Then we'll talk a few buzzwords there, but there's no drill down. I expect more from quote unquote the most sophisticated campaign, the most sophisticated governor, highest IGR, highest brain trust in Nigeria. I expected more in terms of how you will drill down, how you will get this done. It just can't be a passing take. This is just my view on it. Let me get Ben Wazara, Ben Kingsley Wazara. How you doing, sir? Ben Kingsley Wazara. Sorry if I get your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Your hand is up. I see you. Ben King 452. Please go ahead and speak, sir. Ben King 452.
Okay, thank you so much, Campbell. I mean, it's been so interesting. I want to say something, Shambi, before I comment. Please, I really hope that we could talk more on this startup bill. This is one of the, for me, it's one of the best things I've ever,
We did that yesterday. I've just shared the recording. We did that yesterday. The recording is now shared. It's on YouTube, so you can just go to my handle, grab it on YouTube. It's right there. Yeah, the handle is there. Yeah, go for it.
Oh wow! I didn't notice. So okay, I'll go and check it out. Okay, so number one, any policy document that does not foster the private sector is basically trash. I mean, it won't amount to anything. I mean, it will help in any way. Over the years, we've seen that even taking the blueprint of some other countries, some other developed or developing countries. I mean, we can attest to the fact that what is actually pivoting their acceleration is the private sector, basically. And that's the essence of capitalism. That's the beauty of capitalism. Like you said earlier, China, started with communism, and then they translated their economy to a capitalist economy. Why? Because they actually know very well that if they actually want to contest with the world power, it means they have to make the playground fair for everybody. They have to translate the economy into a capitalist, completely a capitalist economy. That means they have to let the private sector thrive more. Yeah. So hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So they have to basically let the private sector thrive the more. That's number one. So every single policy document that does not promote, there was an analysis last year. Yes, there was something I read last year. On I think that was, I don't know. I can't even tell who made that analysis, but it made so much sense to me. It's about revenue, getting revenue through tax. If you want to, he said something. They just said something. If you want to gain more revenue or improve your revenue accumulation, you basically have to leave room for private sector to something like that, startups, businesses, and all of that,
okay.
and then tax them.
All right.
Yes. So,
I hear you. We're totally going to get others to speak.
Okay. So that's number one. Then secondly, I would say again. Okay, but my second point is this: talking about printing more money. Seriously, it has never made any sense to me. It has never made any sense to me since I started hearing that word, that statement. Printing Nigeria, printing more money. It has never made any sense to me, but because by every reasonable calculation, I cannot pinpoint any reasonable profit or benefit has brought to Nigeria. And one thing is certain: we can't photocopy America's system, America's capitalism. I don't know their policy. We can't,
Okay. All right. So I got you. Your time is. So let me just get someone else to speak, if you don't mind.
Okay, let me stop here actually.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. MJ Stark, you've got the floor, sir. MJ Stark, you've got the floor going once. MJ Stark. Dr. Croc, good day, sir. Dr. Croc.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalu. I'll be very brief. I don't know if you addressed this from the onset of this program, because I keep hearing people talking about printing money just like that. I think he stated, I don't know if I think I saw a trade he made where he said that the money will not just be printed, but it will be allocated to businesses. That means that money will be used to generate it. They will not just print money and start paying workers' salary, but they're going to print money and give it to small businesses who invest it.
Let's just be clear. So let's just be clear. Let's just be clear, right? Every country prints money. US prints money. Germany prints money. Nigeria prints money. Every country prints money. That's no problem. When you print money, it doesn't mean you are literally going to printing press to print money. It just means you are taking overdraft. You go to your central bank and you say, hey, I have oil money, it's going to come next month. Can you give me overdraft now? Central bank will say yes. They write you a check, you move ahead. That's what printing money means, right? So what they are saying is that in Nigeria, we are capped. We have a hard cap on how much you can print. CBN has a cap on how much you can print. I think it's 5% of your last year's revenues. They have that cap. Nigeria also has a cap on how much you can spend based on your budget. So that's going to be your oil benchmark. What the APC is proposing is to remove the oil benchmark, which means they can go ahead and quote unquote spend more based on their priorities than being tagged to the oil benchmark. How they will spend it is also here. They've told us they want to spend the money on recruiting millions. That's they are quoting now, millions of youths to do infrastructure. So it's going to go towards salaries. You can argue that those salaries go towards building infrastructure, but can youths build a skyscraper or a railway yard? That's China. So you eventually still have to take that naira and pay China to build that railway. So that's essentially what it is. Yeah.
Okay. One other point I wanted to address, I'll be very brief about this, was I think the last point you made about capitalists. You made mention of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Which I really want us to pay attention to, because I won't call myself a specialist about this, but I'm a cultural observer, so I observe the evolution. One of the things I always write articles about and think I blog a lot is the Afrobeat industry, the music and entertainment industry. Okay. The last article recently that I wrote was about how Afrobeat grew independently without the help of the government. Our youth, actually. I made mention that Afrobeat is no longer about music and entertainment anymore. It is now a socio-cultural revolution, and it's been led by the Nigerian youth.
Yeah.
To be precise, it is very important that we, and many people, Nigerians don't even know that we are currently leading a socio-cultural revolution around the world, changing the image of Black people, changing the image of Africa. around 2004-5. They were using light-skinned vixens or white models in their video, but the thing has changed. They now use black ladies, which is very important for image representation. And in Afrobeat video, we don't use the word nigger, we don't use the word bitchy, so we don't use 5 words to describe black people. It is pure melody. Most of the themes are predominantly weddings and love, heartbreaks, and also they are family-friendly songs that will push, which is far different from hip-hop, far different from dancehall, far different from any other genre that the black community has invented. So it is important that we note that this genre is being pushed by the Nigerian youth and is changing the image of African black people everywhere. Someone spoke about how the government can use this thing in Nigeria. Before now, many of you who live abroad will know this. Nigerian students in the UK, they had difficulties in the early 1990s, 2000, 2004. Nigerians were intimidated. They were afraid. They didn't say they are Nigerians. They were shy. Some of them would say they are West Indies. Some of them would say they are Dominicans.
Yeah.
But now Afrobeat has killed the
I got you. I hear you, but I want to talk about to tie that Afrobeat to, and I'm making this just free advice to any government guy, right? You have to tie entertainment to your budget. There's big money there, and there are ways you can do it. I'm just giving you how. We now stream music more than we buy CDs. So Alaba's model of CDs is going to die. The model is now going to be streaming. You've got to look for a way to get all these boys where they can stream music and you get a share of it. I'm not saying you should go tax them, but it's sitting right there. You've got to support the youths. Then when they stream music, you get a bit of it, protect their intellectual property, and then make more money. This is just free expo, and I'm really not saying it in this document. Maybe the next guy who's going to write a proposal can incorporate this. Nollywood is the highest employer. Look at the spread of what Nollywood does. One thing Nollywood, talk about the movie, film, the CDs, the actors, the caterers, the guys that do the seamstress. They employ a lot of people, but they grew, just like the gentleman said, without government assistance, right? So we should do to do better and just support those guys out there. Nick, how you doing, sir? MRS Slick Nick guy, how you doing? Go for it.
Hey, hello, sir. How are you?
I'm very good.
Talking about what people already talked about. Sorry if you sound repetitive. Government can never be a primary employer of a country. Whenever that is, then there's a problem. The private sector always does what it has to do. So I agree with what people are saying. Again, I'm reading through the economic proposal. I see nothing. The most needed, most urgency in Nigeria now is what I would refer to. Reverse institutional reform. I see nothing related to that. And actually, that would be me, in my view. If you do not put that at the top of your reform agenda, I see nothing coming out of it. At the rate right now, because really at the rate of investment right now, Nigeria's foreign investment as a percentage of its GDP is actually dismal 0.4%. There's no way, again, people talked about the population. There is no way you could be able to drive employment if you want to without no reason that's at least the double digits. And again, the highest Nigeria got was in 2005. I think it was 2.8. Again, in recent years, in the last 20 years, or whatever, 25, 2.8% in 2005 is foreign direct investment into the country. So there is no way you could be able to hire, employ people, do all the things you want to do, to have all these bold ideas. If you're not able to do that, get that to a single digit, to a double digit, where the private sector is involved in collaborating in I think some of the things that Nigeria need in a comprehensive railroad system. I've looked through a Nigerian system. I've looked through all the government websites. I don't see a comprehensive rail plan for the country. I don't see a comprehensive power plan even for the country. I'm talking about for the entire country, not just specific states. I'm talking about overall. I've never seen anything like that. So if you do not invest in infrastructure and institutional reform from day one, I don't see all these plans working. That's just my view.
Good, thank you. Short, sweet. I love that. Ovie, the Prince Ovie. Thank you so much for you. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I just have 2 big points. One is that in terms of, I saw something in the document that I didn't get very clearly, and that is about the correlation between the government spending and the goal to bring the dollar exchange rate to 300 in the short term and 200 in the long term. I don't see how they managed to do this with the increase in government spending.
They want to. They say they want to manage they're basically just going to say it's 300 and it's going to be 300. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, so because if you do that, and then it means that you are going to open more room for us to have the parallel markets having much wider gap between the CPI rates and the parallel markets, where most people will patronize. And then the second point is around the diaspora. I didn't see any plan around the diaspora or how they would utilize the diaspora to any economic benefits of the country, because we know that diaspora contributes a great deal to the economy. So I didn't see anything mentioned about the diaspora.
That's a good spot, and that's a good. You are right. We have diplomacy, and under diplomacy, we really don't have foreign policy. We really don't have much there, and the miss there is not the diaspora, but remittances. I didn't see a lot about remittances. Remittances is Nigeria's largest foreign exchange earner, competing with crude oil, but nothing here on it. Nothing to boost it, nothing to channel it, nothing to encourage it. Big miss. How can you have a policy document to run the largest economy in Africa with the largest diaspora population from Africa and have nothing on diaspora? Big miss. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I think that was a big miss for me. And then finally, I think that there's some good points about housing, of course. We can't provide housing for maybe 200 million people, of course. But I didn't see any plan on how this distribution of the housing will be. Are we building houses in new, or are we creating new urban areas, or are we expanding the current urban areas to having maybe suburbs or metropolitan cities? So I didn't see any real plan, right? Because with that kind of plan, we'll then know if we are going to have new infrastructure like new road networks or rail networks, etc., in those new communities that we want to build. I just saw a blank, just a plan, just a statement basically, and there's no deep plan for us people to know, because when you have this kind of plan, it also prompts people to try to think about investments. Like if I'm having a new city, then I probably want to go to this direction with my own kind of private investment. But I didn't see anything that mentions how or what the government will be thinking if they are elected.
Good point. I think it's, again, going back to this drill down I'm speaking about, it's a very, very good proposal. It's still at 10,000 miles up. The drill down is where it's missing. The housing policy looks good because they had some bit of drill down. You could see the policy overall, right? But the drill down again. So it's the same thing with the Article plan, the same thing I'm seeing with this plan. Some very, very good headlines, but no drill down. So that the idea is that we can read it and then say, oh, this is what Tinubu wants to do. Okay, I'm going to go and take a position. When you read the Obama plan, he started from hope. Then he built that hope into Obamacare. Then you read Obamacare, what they will do, you now see their inflation targets, who they are going to tax, where they are going to spend to achieve Obamacare. There has to be that linkage, guys. You just can't say, I want to build a road. How are you going to pay for it? Hey, Rotus, how you doing? Rotus, go ahead. You got the floor, sir.
Hey, hi, Carl. Great space as usual. I just wanted to quickly touch on the streaming and the entertainment part. I don't know if we're being a little too optimistic here. And with respect to how Nigeria can make money from this. So I stream music from Spotify and Apple, right?
Yeah.
We stream movies from Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
These are companies that are domiciled in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever money they make from increased subscriptions, the United States taxes Amazon, they tax Netflix, they tax Spotify, they tax Apple, and they make money from there. I don't see how Nigeria makes money from streaming unless you compete with those platforms that the government can tax. Also, I'll round up with this. these artists are making lots of money overseas from touring. They tour around the world, and there's infrastructure, there's stadiums, tickets that are market price, expensive tickets. That's how they make their money. Unless Nigeria has proper, it's almost like sports. Unless we have stadiums here that can house them, and they pay, and tickets are appropriately priced, and then the relevant states collect taxes from there. I'm not sure how we make money from that. The entertainment side. I
can come back to that. I mean, the content is created in Nigeria. Let's say you have a startup. We talk about startup artists today. Let's say they have startup act, and I have a studio, and the government says if I come and do my mixing and if I do my recording, I can get 10% ownership in that CD or in that intellectual property. When Netflix buys it, I already have 10% of whatever Netflix is going to get. Same with movies, same with music. The content is in Nigeria. Burna Boy is already big, he's gone. But there are more Burna Boys that are in Ajegunle, in Jos, in Aba, starting today. What they need, if they have a good studio, you want to shoot a movie, you go to Nigerian Army and say, you want to borrow your tanks and your aircraft. You say, okay, well, we're going to have 1% in whatever revenues you get. You have to have someone to manage that whole process. The startup guys can do that for you. So that way, whatever Netflix is buying, it's already built in that there's a 1%, 2% owned by this entity that is Nigerian. And that entity then funds the newcomers coming along. That's what Nollywood does. That's what Hollywood does. So we have the advantage of having this creative folks in music and movies. Let's use them. That's just my take, Roto. So thanks. I do appreciate the call back. J4, we've got you on J4. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, good evening, Carlo.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much. Your speeches are always excellent, of high quality and impactful. My take from the economic plan of the APC candidates is that it is too government-centric. In the sense that it seeks to feed the people, take money from government and literally give it to the people.
Sure.
And hope to maybe tax the people again to fund government. And that cycle does not create value because there's no demand in place. We're currently politicking, and I have no doubt that on this space we have people that are supporters of the different political parties. We have people that are major players and voices in different political parties. So I appreciate what your space does. It is shaping ideologies, it is shaping narratives, and I'm sure even those that maybe after critiquing this particular manifesto, some of the people in that camp will maybe have the intelligent ones will have a rethink and maybe begin to tinker with what they have to do. For me, personally, I think that manifesto is dead on arrival, in that it will not succeed in bringing Nigeria out of where we currently are. I have had calls, I have businesses in different countries in Africa, and late President Magufuli in Tanzania, I have a project in Tanzania, and there are certain policies that government put in place in Tanzania that led to so much, development both in infrastructure and, in citizens and locals invest in certain sectors. I believe that is the job of government, to put forth policies that will inspire the private sector to invest in certain areas by creating demand with those policies. One of the candidates is very big on that. And one of the reasons I'm very bullish in his support and all of that is that even as we speak, the elections are not even happening. We're still campaigning. Aside from the fact that he's jockeying from country to country, he's actually putting actual plans that will create opportunities for people and even FDI to begin to immediately from day one begin to flow in. Let me not go to specifics of one, but let me give you a slight idea so that maybe people will begin to understand what we mean. We have varying problems in Nigeria with nobody creating solutions. Imagine a government policy, for example, that will, maybe give a tax reduction and mandate citizens to do a certain thing that will require certain items to be manufactured. Those items currently are not manufactured in Nigeria, but instead of allowing those items to be imported into Nigeria, structures are already being set up right now as we speak to have companies abroad come and set up at the very least assembly plants in Nigeria, train technicians for installation. And this is something that will literally have to be on every house, every building in Nigeria, commercial and private, categorized in different sectors. Imagine the number of houses in Nigeria and the kind of need something like this we create. In this thing, government is not spending money aside from putting forth the policy that everybody must adhere to. So, for example, instead of paying X amount in taxes in a certain area, that taxation is reduced by, say, 5%, and you are now mandated to spend money in a different sector. This is money you would have spent anyway in taxes, but this will automatically create, I kid you not when I tell you this, hundreds of thousands or low millions of jobs.
J4, there are many sectors I think that we're overlooking can create billions of jobs. I read this manifesto or whatever the economic plan, I see a dependency being created, right? The US created a social security system way back in the Depression. Right now, if you read the stuff about it, they can't really afford it going forward. With their entitlements, their interest payments, it's going to get to a point where the interest on their debt will take away all the revenues and the entitlements. So if we want to start, you want to start now to say you're going to create millions of young people that are going to be paid a government wage. When you fix the infrastructure, what happens to them? Do you sack them and all that? So I am more for give the private sector the incentives to hire these people. That's what I would go for, right? Give Julius Berger the tax money. Julius Berger now is exporting cashew nuts. Tell them, okay, 0 excise duties if you employ 20% more. That's my take. Then train those youths, right? And probably hand over what they built to the youth to manage. So you say, okay, 100 kilometers, they're going to have a team of 5 youths, have a truck, and they go around fixing the potholes or whatever on that. There are many ways you can do this, but just to put 100 millions of people on the payroll that are funded by printed money, eventually you have to remove that printed money, and that means the economy has got to be productive to grow. Where is the productivity going to come from? You are fixing FX. You are saying you want to print as you like. You are saying you want to do import substitution and all that. Okay, let's see.
I give you an example. In Tanzania, you cannot have more than 5 employees as expatriates in any company in Tanzania. You cannot have more than 5. Imagine a company coming into Nigeria now. You know what that means in essence is that you have to employ locals. And if the people with skill sets does not exist, if a business is important enough for you, you bring people. I was forced to do that. Initially, I had to try to use our Nigerian ways to see whether I could, circumvent the system. It was impossible. What I'm saying is that this particular manifesto is too heavy on government spending, and it is not sustainable.
Thank you.
If whatever is going to drive Nigeria forward is not private sector driven, we're still swimming in the dark.
I hear you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. ODT. Mr. ODT, you've got the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, Carl. Thank you. I've listened to everyone here, and I think there are a few misconceptions about what is in the manifesto. So basically, the real definition of a manifesto is intentions, motive, and views, or intention, motive, and views of what a government wants to do. So when people are clamoring for the breakdown of how, basically, they are basically it can cause a risk. So, for example, the first risk obviously will be security. So if you look at that document, there are still many things that the government wants to do. The APC team wants to do regarding security. So if you're asking for how, don't you think that would preempt terrorists or criminals to see where we are going to or what we are going to do? But I think basically, manifestos usually are surface level. You come to England, you talk about the Labour Party or the Conservative Party manifesto. Labour Party talk about green industrial revolution. They talk about launching national transformation fund of 400 billion pounds, 250 billion pounds. No one tells you where this 250 billion pounds is going to come from.
Oh, but
So
they do. But they do. They do.
I'm listening to you.
They do. If you look at Liz Truss mini budget, it said where she was going to spend.
But Liz Truss had already entered the government. It wasn't before.
No, but when they do elections, the Labour Party, the Conservatives will tell you what they're going to do and where.
For example, now look at Liz Truss. I live in UK, so I can tell you this categorically now.
Just to be clear, are you saying that? Just to be clear,
there were a lot of gaps.
No, are you saying
that obviously even led to why the government failed? So there was no what the economic forecast.
This is the point. You are making the point because
the only thing obviously you have to do is you look at the key elements. Taxes. Do you want to increase taxes? What are you talking about? Revenue. But if you want this is an 80-page document. The average manifesto is about what? 50-something pages, 60 pages. Check the PDP, maybe about 50, 60 pages. If you want to break down how, then again, you're basically just put out everything out there. So, like I said, let's just go back to the key meaning of what a manifesto is. It's intentions and views and policies. It's never about how. If you could just do that and just check the definition of what a manifesto is. So that's why I just want us to just
but the type.
I respect everybody.
So let me get a word in.
Desire for what they in terms of what they want to know the how. Obviously, it's important to actually know the how. So you are not just paying lip service and you're not just saying things out of sync, which is important. But the government obviously has a plan to achieve most of these things. But I'm listening to you,
So the title of the document says action plan. It's not a manifesto. It says action plan. Maybe we've called it a manifesto because we're used to that word, but it's an action plan. If you read the document, what they say they want to do, they're essentially telling you what they are doing. It's a agenda, action plan. This is their words. We focused only on the economic part, i.e. on this space, just on the economy. In every economic plan, you have got to say what you are going to spend and where the spend is going to come from. Economic plan.
Basically, this obviously, you've used the word manifesto more than actual plan, so we all know what it is. It's a thin line between a manifesto and action plan, but it is not an outright economic plan. Because the thing is, if you put all your concentration and say this is the economic plan, further on, if the government enters and brings out extra things, extra variables, then you've seen that.
But to be honest with you, sir,
knowing the whole government intention.
ODT. I haven't. If you heard from the very top, right? I read the thing word for word. Then I gave my analysis, and I the numbers. I've not even touched the numbers. The 10% GDP, I left it alone because that was just someone doing maths. If you look at page 13, where they actually have the numbers, someone just did 10% on GDP and extrapolated. That's wrong. We didn't go there. I am talking about the elements embedded where they talk about they're going to decouple the benchmark prices, where they're going to say they want to not allow the naira to float. That's where I'm focusing on. And I'm saying if you are going to decouple the spending from the oil, where are you going to fund that from? Are you going to borrow? Are you going to print? I'm not asking for naira and kobo.
You've seen the government's plan or the government's intentions towards tax.
What is their intention? I literally said it's
a tax reform plan.
This is the I can read it for you.
Antecedent of the candidate, he talks about.
Sir, let's read it. Let's read it. It's verbatim. This was the point I picked out specifically, and I said it's just words. What does it mean? Let me read it for you in quote. We shall review the corporate tax system and deploy technology and effective policies. That's the tax reform sentence.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Let me come in here now. Now, the difference between this candidate and obviously the others is the antecedents. Now, when he was in Lagos State, you saw the antecedents when he did with tax. He was one that floated up the first state tax agency. So
he didn't do. No.
So when you say it's just what? No, you've forgotten his antecedents in generating tax revenue.
He didn't generate the tax. The tax for the state is already set law. Payee wasn't developed in Lagos State. He collected more taxes. He streamlined the system. He cleaned up the waste and the corruption. He took away all the fat, made people pay to banks. He increased revenues from 700 million to 21 billion. I give him the kudos. That is state.
Like I said,
that
the
is
antecedents are
state.
there. The antecedents also talk about expanding the tax net.
I just read it for you.
How do people come into the party? How do people come into the country and pay tax? Like I'm talking about the citizens, expanding the tax net. So
where did it say that? Where did it say?
The antecedents are clear. He's done well with tax reform when he was governor. And obviously, he's shown that he's telling you he has a plan to reform taxation.
Okay.
So if you're looking for more, if you want to go into the minutiae details, then again, you're basically just asking for some sort of what word did I go to use? You're basically treating him like he's the current government, like he's the current.
But
president.
he is listen. This is when I did the article. When I did the article plan, I didn't go into the detail because he's the contender.
Okay.
This guy was with the president on Thursday, Wednesday, and Friday because he's the APC candidate. The APC is the currently in power. He says, and I quote, "We are going to continue from where the president has stopped." So he has the numbers. It's his party. It's the same ideology. So we have to look at this party as a continuation. And he said it himself. We will continue from where the Buhari administration has stopped. The Buhari administration said they're going to pay subsidy till June 2023. He just said we're going to stop. Buhari administration says we're going to continue to pay social welfare payment. He says he's going to expand it. So I'm now asking, those things you are going to do, Buhari has said he's going to print and borrow. Are you also going to print and borrow? That's all I'm asking.
So I get, like I said, I get your intention. I know where you are coming from. However, I need you to know that, like I said, there are other things, take it from me, there are other things in the pipeline that the Buhari and the Tinubu administration is going to do. There are other things in the pipeline.
Okay.
This is just basically a teaser, a trailer to the movie we are going to bring.
Excellent.
Like if you think about it, let's look at it. How many other parties have brought out their manifestos? So manifestos obviously are just teasers. Take this out, and then we'll work on it. There are other things in the pipeline. You need, before you come out with full, direct, head-on policies, you need to understand that you need to involve all stakeholders. Obviously, there are going to be market risks as well. So let me come back to the other point of where you said it's a continuation of the Buhari administration, the same party, the same ideology. Brilliant. But let's come back to England. I like using the England example because it's a recent model of current affairs. So you look at the Truss government, fundamentally, and they're the same party, but fundamentally different approaches with Boris Johnson government. They tried to grow the economy. They said they were going to take off taxes and all that. That didn't work out well. Jeremy Hunt came in within the same government, reversed all the tax cuts and said, okay, corporation tax, let me take it back from 19 to 25. Let me suspend this. Let me reduce what we're going to do. And so basically on the subsidy question you're asking, look at the difference between Jeremy Hunt's approach and what Kwasi Kwarteng did when it came to energy support for households. Hunt is saying it's going to stop by next year. The other person wanted to do it for about 2 years. Same Conservative Party, different approaches. So everything we are working on is in the pipeline. Just take that from me. Okay? I understand, obviously, people want, because we're the ruling party, the main contenders, people actually want to know what we're going to do. And technically, we are the favorites to win this election. So I understand where everybody wants to get the nitty-gritty. But I think we should try and be patient to see, to let us get in there. So that when we get in there, you get even towards the campaign. We don't even have to get in there as the campaign progresses. You hear things from us. You hear different plans.
I like how you're saying us. So if you are saying us, Mr. Oditi, if you are saying us, who are you? Just so that we're clear.
Oh, I'm a member of the Presidential Campaign Council.
Okay, got you. So get the point again what we're making here, right? Lots of people listening, right, want to understand. This includes APC members, this includes PDP, this includes Labour. They want to understand. So we are doing this so people can understand. And again, I go back to the trend I made, right? This is going to be the first time in Nigeria's history since 1960 that we're going to have a left-leaning progressive government. The last time we had something near this was in the north, in Rimi, when I think it was a Kano, was it Balaribe Musa tried this? I know what happened to him. So I'm a supply side conservative. So already you see what my bias is. But I want to basically get the real drill down. I would appreciate if you have those tidbits, send to me. I will share it impartially and explain it. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the time.
Sure, no problem. Like I said, the government, obviously, the administration obviously is going to see how to solve most of the supply issues. And you can see our stance on inflation. We've noticed that obviously inflation, Alexa, pause, sorry. So basically, you've seen how government obviously is talking about attacking inflation, trying to improve the production.
Question for you.
Supply.
Question
so
for you.
Monetary policy is not enough to attack the current inflation we're going through. So yeah, those are the things we're going to.
Yeah, question for you real quick, since I have you here.
Let's just be patient.
Yeah, question for you real quick. I saw some other document saying 300 naira to $1. It's not in this document, but is it?
No,
That
document is fake.
It's fake.
About it.
So okay, so yeah, okay,
it's
fake. So it's not 300. Okay. The second question is, so in terms of taxes, right? I see you say loopholes. Are we looking at tax hikes, tax cuts? Because it's all over the document. Some are going up with tax credits. Some are still going to give tax plug-in loopholes. So overall, is it going to be? Are we going to see an increase in the capital gains or progressive taxes? What does that mean in numbers? Do you have that information real quick for us?
So basically, when it comes to taxes, like I said, the antecedents are there. But what we want to do, obviously, is to see how we want to expand the tax burden net. Now, in Nigeria, we currently have about 50 businesses pay about 50 taxes.
Okay.
We have a very inefficient tax system where we need to improve. The general global average is about 26 taxes. We in Nigeria pay about 50 something for businesses. So we want to see how we can just not bring quality taxes in, not quantity. So see how we can improve in terms of luxury tax. I mean, we discuss sometimes how some people do not pay taxes, people avoid it. But the thing about taxing is we're going to engage in the business of optics. Now, generally, people avoid taxes because they don't believe the government is going to judiciously spend the taxes. And obviously, I understand where that sentiment comes from. So the idea of this government is to see how we're going to show that there's going to be a lot of goodwill within people, and you can see that in what we want to do in cost of government expenditure. We're talking about we're going to put a cap on elected official salary. We're not going to build on any government buildings. These things are not taking a priority in this government coming in. So you get an idea of where this government is headed in terms of let's try and increase our revenue. Because I know a lot of people talk about our government spending and says we're very heavy government spenders and everything. But the thing is, the data doesn't prove that. So let's go to the data. In 2021, government spending to GDP was about 5.11%. Nigeria.
The GDP
is about 16 something percent. So let's look at our budget as well. Our budget as our last year is about $40 billion. Comparatively, look at South Africa, look at Egypt, $100 and something billion. Egypt, $100 and something billion.
Yes,
these are countries that have significant
what's the revenue,
lower population than us. So at the end of the day, there's a disconnect somewhere.
Mr. Odisi, I won't let you get away. I will let you just slide that.
Why countries with lower population having more budgets than us? So the theory is our budget is not sufficient enough for the type of things that government wants to do for 200 million people. That's the truth.
Yeah,
so
but
we're going to explore different means to see how we can get the best for Nigerian people.
Question for you, but when you quote debt to GDP, what about debt
I didn't say debt to GDP.
You said debt to budget. GDP. Yes,
right now, I'm not talking about when it even comes to debt. I don't look at debt to GDP. That's a terrible threshold to look at. Okay. I look at debt to revenue ratio.
No, but you said debt. You said.
Look at what we are going to do when it comes to foreign debt.
Yeah, but you said debt. You said debt to You said debt to budget.
To cash flow that will fulfill our needs.
I hear you, but you said debt to budget. You said GDP to. That's what you said. So I'm just asking, right? It's a revenue issue or is a spending issue right now?
So can you answer that question again?
So I'm saying when you spoke, you compared South Africa and the rest. You said the spending to GDP, and I'm saying they spend because they generate the revenues. Nigeria's revenues to taxes is the lowest in the entire world. World. So I'm asking. So the first question I asked was: are we going to see an increase in taxes or an increase in the base, or both of them? What's the former? Is it will the base expand? Will the rates go up, or is it going to be a combination? What's the main push? Base or
right
rates?
Right now, I'll be lying if I say I have the
Got you.
information. But but the main thing we're looking at is to expand the net.
The base.
Everybody has to pay. Everybody. For a country to work.
Okay.
For a country to work, I think. I know you're in a developed country at the moment as we speak. So you know how for a country to work, taxes are important. You can't really get too much if you don't. That's why Benjamin Franklin would say two things are, what do you call it, inevitable in life: debt and taxes. And that's why the American government focuses on IRA and all that. See how they can get taxes. Like, taxes are so important. Like we have the lowest tax regime in the world. I really don't like using all these economic metrics and whatnot, but we need to do better with our taxes. It's there. This government currently has tried to do that, and that's why you see sometimes.
Okay. Let's quickly move to exchange rates. Are you really going to fix? Are you really going to lock that in, or it's going to float? Quick one for you. What's your take on that?
No, I don't know the answers. I don't know the answers to that question. But to be honest, we're going to see how we're going to optimize the exchange rate. That obviously it improves foreign direct investment. Because I know for certain, just like you do, is that the current system we operate it doesn't help for planning.
Gotcha.
It does not help for planning. So we want to see how the different frameworks we can use. We need to be very careful because obviously we have to do things in the interest of the exporters, I wouldn't say interest of the importers, but at the end of the day, we have to do what's best for Nigeria. So the data, obviously, we don't have access to currently the data that will guide our decision making, and obviously that happens when we get there. But we're going to collaborate with the central bank government, the central bank government, and the Central Bank of Nigeria, to see how we can to see what's best the foreign policy and exchange rate framework is best for Nigeria.
Okay. I will take it that this is the first step. When we get the other step, the drill down, like you said, will go down. I was going to ask you more about the employment side, this millions, the uncoupling of the benchmark from the budget, all those things, man, they are big, when you say you're going to spend without that benchmark, that's a huge thing. You're saying you're going to spend maybe 1 trillion or 10 trillion or 100 trillion. Big issues we're going to get clarification on. But Oditi, I thank you. Hang out here. If you want to interrupt, if you hear someone speaking and you want to correct what someone thinks, please hop in. We'll let you speak.
Yeah, I have a meeting now. I'd love to stay, but I have
Super.
A meeting now. But thank you. I just wanted to clarify a few things on the manifesto.
We appreciate that.
Views, policies. Don't worry. When we start campaign, we'll see if you know everything.
We've not started the campaign. You've not started the campaign.
Ideas.
All right, super. I think J4 has a comeback on that. J4, go ahead.
So sorry, Mr. Oditi. You said you had a meeting. I actually wanted to. Okay, he's gone.
Yeah.
I really wish he was available to answer this because initially when you started, Carlo, there was a statement that he made that you were trying to get down to the nitty-gritty, and that there was no way we could get to the nitty-gritty and all of that. But I think what we're trying to critique here is the answers that they have already presented, not the questions. The answers that they have already presented states clearly that their government will spend. The problem, he tried to move away from that point about how the money was going to come about.
Yeah,
and I said it was akin. Let me put it in layman's terms how I understand. Maybe you can correct me as the economist. What I think the APC government, the APC candidate wants to do if he makes it to the presidency is literally to create money out of the air, use it to pay citizens, millions of Nigerians, and tax those people for those monies to come back. And those, if I understand it in the
you got the first part right. He's going to create money out of thin air. He's going to pay, but he's not going to tax. How he's going to get the money back is that when those people, this is the plan, when those people are employed and are working, then they will spend, and that spending will generate wages and growth. Then those wages and growth will now be taxed. The problem is this, right? If anything happens, if you have the COVID, if anything at all happens and that plan stops, you have already spent the trillions. If you don't get that trillion back, it now becomes locked in. You then have a rolling snowball. So the spending is going to happen front end. The benefits happen back end. So like the US can do it because the US prints money. But when the US prints money, they print money via bonds. So Nigeria goes and buys those bonds. I buy, you buy. Nigeria keeps dollars in her reserves. So the US is able to sell that deficit across the world. If Nigeria prints bonds and prints trillions, the interest rate will not be high because it's going to overprint. The Central Bank of Nigeria will buy. So it's not going to be a real, quote unquote, real rate of return. They're already saying 9% for the ones they want to print on the 20 trillion. Inflation is 20. When you print more inflation, it's just going to be something that people would buy, but it won't be a real rate of return. So going forward, they will tax you at the back end to replace the consumption at the front end. That's what they're planning to do.
The point is this, why I say there's a danger to that, is that this money that they're going to get from the air, they will not be spending it on any other thing but on government initiatives.
We'll see.
If I'm correct.
Government
initiatives by, you said they're going to expand the social base, social security nets. They're going to do this, they're going to do that, infrastructure projects, rail line, buildings. When those build projects are completed, what happens?
They'll tax it.
After what I mean is you tax that return. What happens going forward?
Well, that's what we want to get information on now.
That's we're not going to take more money and do what?
That's what we want to get the information that we can't get now because it's just step one. He says they're going to come back. The more they come back, the more we get more information. The more we can get the model out. I mean, I'm taking him at his word. I know, he's right. This is not a drill down, but the more I get information, the more I can answer. For now, this is all I can see. So let's take him at that word and see. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff, let me get Mr. Joe. Mr. Joe, hi, how you doing? Josie D1.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, I will be quick about this. Let me just start from the issue of printing of money.
Uh-huh.
Once you print more money than you're expected to print, you are already encouraging inflation.
Yeah.
And there's no economy where you encourage inflation. I mean, in a country like Nigeria, you are heading to doom. There is a disaster already. There's nothing you can do with it. Any policy that tends to weaken our currency is a disaster. And that is one of the major problems we are facing at the moment. The value of our currency keeps dropping. And because many of the things we do, of course, we rely on the dollar for many of the things we do. Just like I think it was you or someone who said it. How many people are interested in our currency? So when you say because America prints more money, we want to print more money in Nigeria, we have excess. Nobody is buying our currency in the international market. So we will definitely run into inflation. And that is disaster. I mean, it means we haven't seen anything yet. Because people, economically, it's foolishness for you to think printing more money, putting more money into the hands of the people who make life easy enough. People will just have plenty of money just to get a little value. So I don't want to go too much into that. Now I want to talk about the other aspect of, creating jobs. You see, I think this, whoever wrote this, I believe this is just a propaganda, but let me take it as a policy. Whoever wrote this policy is forgetting the fact that we have several skilled labor in Nigeria who are unemployed. And you can't be talking about getting values for skilled labor and all you're thinking about is creating jobs like Julius Berger and, people to come and start doing daily, maybe you pay them per day, because this is what I'm saying there. This is not creating value. I was speaking with someone and we were looking at the number of people who traveled from Nigeria this year, just to UK alone. Some of us, of course, we have the numbers. And one of the things I told that we discussed was that, do you realize that the majority of these people who traveled are actually skilled guys who could help this country?
Yeah.
Many of them they are not people. Many of them have masters. Many of them are professionals. So why you are creating a policy that doesn't give room for professionals to stay in your country?
Yeah, but let me also speak a bit on their side. The bulk of the employed people are really just uneducated. These are guys that are just left school or didn't go to school. They are underemployed. So you have a bigger problem with underemployment, right? That they have a job, maybe they're a conductor, but that's not a real job. Or they are working in a shop earning 1,000 naira a month, but their organ fits them and they don't go to school, but they have a quote unquote job. So this bulk of employment will soak up those people and put them on the pathway. But maybe this is the first step. I want that pathway to include education. In America, you go to war, you come back, they educate you. You go to war, you come back, you can buy a house at a reduced mortgage rate. So it's not enough to just say, we're going to just take people and make them to build roads. You've got to do something more. Otherwise, when you build that road, what happens to that guy? So, like you said, it's the first step. Let's wait for others. Mr. Joe, let me get Mecca in here. Mecca, we're going to run out about 15 minutes, guys. So let me just try and get the folks that have responded to speak.
Carlo, I wanted to bring a point.
Kevin, go ahead.
What this? I don't know if you shall not be just.
Sure, go for it, Kevin.
Refer back to that point for a minute.
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I listened to Ope from the APC Presidential Campaign Council, and I was a bit flabbergasted by what he said, to be honest with you. And the reason is because if you divide Nigeria's budget for 2023 by 209 million people, we get about 95,000 naira per head. But he kept talking about spending, and he wasn't talking about revenue. He was comparing the UK to Nigeria, and I'm wondering how he's comparing the UK to Nigeria. Some of the stats he gave were actually wrong. But let me leave that topic and go to something that I think has been a common thread from somebody earlier who spoke about multiple regression analysis that was done by financial derivatives, and how they discovered that exchange rate was a big contributor to inflation. And I'll pick an example I like. Look at MTN. MTN has raised about $2.5 billion from the Nigerian bonds market. Why will MTN want to raise money from the bonds market in Nigeria over bringing in FX from their international operations? The answer is very clear. The difference between the official and the parallel market, same view that the airlines are currently facing, about $600 million of backlog. You have the forwards market. There's no curve for the forwards market for market makers to be able to take the other side of the trade when people take 5 to 10 year forward contracts to hedge the risk of currency fluctuation. For me, I usually, when I listen to debates like this, I don't like listening to vague topics. I'm very respectful to people, especially when it comes from people who are from the parties. They work with the parties and they come with vague topics and ideas. No one is talking about exchange mechanism. Look at the fixed exchange rate system we have of plus or minus 30 naira, outside of which you're going to get CBN intervention. In 2013, we had the difference of between like 153, 151 to 154, 157. Yeah, when Buhari took over, it was 199. And today, the difference between the official market and the parallel market is about 335 naira. How do you want to get an investor to bring in $1 billion, register with NOTAP, get a certificate of capital import, convert it at 437 billion naira, and then when he needs to do capital repatriation or he needs to import equipment, you're telling him that he cannot get that money through from maybe he wants $50 million or $70 million to import equipment. He goes to CBS said they don't have dollars from him. How do you expect him to source for the FX? And this is also a risk to the tech sector in Nigeria, because you discovered that a lot of these startups are getting funding and the monies are coming into Nigeria. Let's say, for example, Flutterwave gets $25 million. It comes into Nigeria, they register with NOTAP, and then they convert it to Naira. When they want to do all of these activities, how do they get money to do it? They can't get money from the CBN. And what are the major sources of effects for any economy? You have FDIs, it has dropped. And the reason why it has dropped is very obvious. The reason it has dropped is because there's too much of gap between the official and the parallel market. Remittances. And the Nigerian government is over-reliant on remittances. You can imagine you saying that remittances are very important, but you don't want to give the Nigerians in diaspora the right to vote in an election that they contribute to.
I hear you.
Yeah, you have oil receipt that has dropped because most of in fact for last year, Nigerian government got revenues of about 3.9 trillion naira, and they got revenues of $9 billion, but they spent $9.4 billion on under recovery or PMS subsidy. So the money in 2021 that is spent on PMS subsidy is actually a little $400 million higher than the money they got from oil receipts for the market. You know, I'm because of everyone that is on this session and the time limit we have on it, I wanted to go on other areas, but I'm just going to conclude by saying that I don't see specifics. There's too much, vague analysis, especially from the people who represent the parties.
Headlines, lots of headlines.
Yeah, because I mean, if this is the quality of conversation we're having from people who are in the parties and are part of the ranks, what is going to happen when they get to Aso Rock? Is it going to be vibes and inshallah?
I hear you. Thank you so much, Kevin. Let me get Mecca. Mecca, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Okay, what I want to start by saying is the whole thing is actually extremely vague. It's really, really vague. And even if you want to make a vague manifesto, want to write something vague, I think you should, put it in a way that people can just simply understand, right? You don't just go and say you want to raise oil production to 4 million. Everybody's going to wonder how you're going to do that. You don't just go and say you want to be your GDP 10% per year. Everybody's going to be wondering. You can just, even if you want to put some values there, let it be like some values that we can even, this is actually possible in the country we're in right now. Not something that is so abstract. It's almost looking impossible. Right? We're talking about this GDP whole thing. I think someone compared budgets to other countries to Nigeria without actually checking their GDP and their IG. I think that's a very natural comparison. Then is our problem actually GDP, right? I think we have the problem is more like IGR focus. Then the down to the manufacturer, I think we should be talking about SMEs. That's what I expected, right? Because I don't even know where these taxes are going to come from. If anything happens, we just want to spend the whole. And then again, talking about this whole spending thing, when you increase the amount of money in circulation, you're obviously going to cause a demand pull inflation, right? So if you're going to increase the price of goods and services, and then I also expect them to talk about FX maybe in terms of BDC. We already operate a cost. Is it a control float system that CBN but how controlled is it? If you have this difference of almost more than 300 naira. So what are we looking at? Are we expecting this to see more control?
Yeah, I asked that, but I didn't get that answer. I really wanted to get that answer, but I didn't get that answer from them. Yeah, so we'll see. Mecca, we'll see. Let me get I'm just running.
Those are the things we expect to see. Those are you can just take that out. It won't take more than a sentence. It's just simple things, just basics. That's all we need to. So I feel it's very, very, it's extremely vague.
Well, they said it's step one. So let's.
And they didn't talk about remittances. I think we had like $5 billion.
That's shocking.
Like from that. That's what important things. They should just be highlighted, even if it's. Even if you want to go vague, let's try and be reasonable and responsible for those things are so abstract. It sounds like I don't know. Let me just end it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Mecca, I hear with you. Thank you so much. Let's say Cliff. Cliff, you've got the floor.
All right, thank you, Carlo, for having me. So I've heard all the economic analysis. I'm not an economist, but my own perspective will be from a risk management angle. And my greatest concern, which I feel should also be the concern of everyone on this call, is do we really think that the primary candidate has a buy-in into what the contents of this document is? Because, when we have some interrogations, and Rotus is on this call, which is why I am bringing this up, we've been having a lot of conversations with other presidential candidates, and we've been hearing what they're saying, which, of course, is in line with what is in their manifestos. But I haven't heard, this particular presidential candidate come to any fora to speak on, nitty-gritty of some of the contents of this document. And even in the last instance where he was interviewed on climate change, we can hear, some of the things that he said, which is worrisome. And people are watching and they're saying, are you sure that this document that we are even debating, that the presidential candidate understands and has a buy-in into what the document is speaking to? Now, the second point I want to make is on the tax. There's something about fiscal justice. So we keep talking about taxing people. The truth is that there is a trust deficit, which, of course, the populace is looking at. They provide their own security, they provide their own water, they provide everything. And you're talking about increasing the tax net and even taxing these people more. How are they going to do that magic? Because as it stands, people do not trust the government, especially with the fact that the current dispensation, if you look at the document that they put out while they were also campaigning, there is no promise that they made that they were able to achieve, and they are leaving office. So how are we going to now trust this one that is coming in when we cannot even interrogate the presidential candidate himself?
Good points. Let's hope they are listening and they can respond. I hear you. Thanks, Cliff. Let's get retired. Guys, we're going to shut down in about, once we take this all the way to Dambi, then we're going to shut down. So I've got Dambi, Magud, Larry, and then we'll take it up from there. Retired, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be very brief, and I only want to speak to the tax policy. Mm-hmm. Now, in this manifesto, the tax policy is quite brief. Like as we mentioned earlier on, we have 2 paragraphs. But those 2 paragraphs itself, the last sentence in the second paragraph is actually a red flag to me. Now, before going into why that last paragraph is a red flag to me, I just want to also give the current administration a little bit of plaudits around what they've been able to do around taxes. Now, first off, this government has introduced certain things that was not in existence prior to now, the current government. First, an example of what they've introduced is the finance bill. So prior to this administration, we did not have previous civilian administrations bringing in a finance bill to support the budget. But from 2019 against the 2020 budget, we've seen the current government bringing a finance bill telling us how they're going to actually finance the budget. So we've had that for successive years. Also, an interesting thing that the current government has done is the Infrastructure Tax Act. So we see companies like Dangote and MTN keying into that. So I was expecting when this manifesto dropped, I was expecting to see details as to what this candidate will be doing, enhancing the current improvements we've had. Also, this current government has actually increased tax GDP from like 6% to 8%, which is very minimal, but an increase regardless. This candidate has.
Yeah, but bro, I want.
Sorry, I just want to make.
No, I want you to speak. I want you to speak.
Important point. Sorry, please. Sorry. There is a social contract deficit for this candidate because in Lagos, where he raised taxes, he has done that through a private company. That private company's SLE, that's a service level agreement, is not available to the public. That is a major red flag because in this current manifesto, he's also saying that he wants to look for a way to increase efficiency of collection. Will he increase efficiency of collection by empowering the agencies like the FIRS to do carry out the responsibilities the way they are supposed to carry out the responsibilities? Or is he also proposing to bring in a private company that has very murky contractual agreements with the current state government in Lagos State? So this is key for me because it goes back to transparency. When I worked in a Big Four back in Nigeria, we went to this private company in Ijora to get tax clearance certificates, which I don't think supports compliance because most people would rationalize.
But it's like, you've got to wind up, right?
Yeah, so I'm done.
I think good point.
I was going to
Yeah,
spend more time about this book.
Yeah, good point you've made. I think I made that point also that they put in the document that they will use the same format in Lagos for taxes. And I asked the question, are we going to use the same ABC? So that point is made clearly. Let's get Ezechi Emeka. Hi, good day, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Kanu, and good evening, everybody. I think everybody has made very fine submission. One point I want to also make is that when doing a particular program or plan, there are 3 questions philosophers always ask. Now we call it WHW. What, how, and when? What is the APC manifesto all about? How are they going to execute the manifesto that they gave us? And when? We'll talk about timelines. That is one. Number two is that
no. I want to get a. Do you have a question, sir?
It's not the issue of police formulation. Hello.
Do you have a question? Do you have a question, sir, or a comment? You have to give. What's the question or comment?
I said in philosophy of planning.
No, you have to ask a question or make a comment. That's very general. Go be direct, sir, if you don't mind.
Okay, my comment is this. The challenge we have in Nigeria is not the issue of policy formulation, but policy implementation.
Okay.
And on the issue of fund generation, which you are not looking at very critically, which I know is a very important phenomenon.
Okay.
As far as revenue is concerned, is the issue of corruption. Corruption is the major issue that is actually depleting the Nigerian revenue. That is just the basic truth. Right. I can give you instance.
No, Peter, we're going to let others speak. Peter, thank you so much. I'm going to let others speak. Let's go to Maduagu Zebuchi. Go ahead, sir. You got the floor.
Thank you very much. So, what I wanted to say is, one, how do they plan on implementing that the infrastructural bill when they say they will employ millions of people into government coffers? My main issue with that is, one, are they trying to put out construction companies like Julius Berger and Cranbrook out of the markets? Two is, when they talked about bringing in commodity boards, does this mean that they want to start regulating a market that is already regulated? They want to start bringing in what we have in the downstream petroleum industry sector. So these are my two issues with the manifesto. Thank you.
Good points. How they're going to factor in the youth employment. I think they already have something now where they do 700,000 youths in 774 local government. I don't think these youths are.
Sorry, I wanted to give you something. We already have an infrastructural agency.
I think that's where they're going to work. I think they're going to maybe work with FEMA, that kind of thing. That's what I think. But in the end, they have to employ folks. That's what's going to happen. So we'll take from there. Hey, Lanre Stephen, go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Kalu. I have quite a few points. I'll run through them quickly. I believe a data-driven economy would be helpful to us for the reason that we have quite a lot of things we can do in Naira, honestly. Tying economy to the dollar.
You have no choice now, okay? It's not. I can hear you very well. I'm just saying that you have no choice now. You have no choice to tie to the dollar.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand that we have no choice for a part of the economy, but we have two types of economy running in Nigeria. We have the formal and we have the. For instance, I'm into cassava farming, and I know that Nigeria produces 60 billion tons of cassava. We consume all of it. And there is an export market for cassava. We don't use mechanized farming for it. Largely, we can double this production and export 60 million tons of cassava and get foreign exchange. You spend Naira to do that. Yeah. And it goes for yam, goes for maize, a lot of things. So there is a part of the economy that gains substantially from the Naira. Yeah. I've been working in the oil industry for quite some time. I understand the way the oil industry finances work. We have a minimum threshold of crude oil. And once we hit that, you are just barely making profits. So our crude oil prices go up and down. We all know that. And then the production is also fluctuating. So how do you really manage a budget that is tied to all these kinds of uncertainties?
I hear you.
I'd like to make some comments here. We need a lot of transparency in the way we handle our foreign exchange. And that's a major one. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to make it completely electronic.
Mm.
Why are we changing dollars? Why are people holding dollars in Nigeria? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, coming to remittances, I believe remittances need to be really looked at because we are also exporting. A lot of people spend money to go abroad. People pay school fees abroad. So it's a plus and minus. Yeah. The third one I'd like to say.
That's the last one, sir.
Population. Just, I'll be through in a moment, please. I know we don't have time. Population. Do we really have the data? I told you I'm into cassava farming. I stayed in Ibadan here. I can't get people to work for me. Yeah, even though I'm giving them, offering good salaries. Yeah.
Wow.
We get put all the boys around. Sometimes you go look for the northern boys. The northern boys go back home because they have a culture of farming. In the south, we don't have the population to even work on the farm. So I have a problem with that policy. I really don't think they will even get people to work on the farms in the first place.
I hear you.
Yeah. Then on the tax, I believe that we are yet to really tax ourselves. Not in terms of percentage of tax to revenue, in terms of actually taking tax at all. Yeah, everybody use this tax to develop. It's only Nigeria that will be using petrodollars, and the petrodollar isn't coming anymore. So this is my general view about it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate that. And the last speaker, setting out the list in terms of contributions, is going to be Dan B. Danny B. Work in progress. You've got the mic, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Could you speak up, please?
Just a couple of things. I was pretty much excited about the pilot scheme, specifically with the pilot scheme for loans, the proposal on the educational area, and also a couple of things. But I am really interested about something. I feel that from a macro standpoint, our biggest issue is stagflation. And this is something Carlos mentioned several times. So I almost think it's a case of battling. We are almost between the devil and the deep pussy. On one hand, do you inflate your way out of this issue if that's possible? On the other end, how do you grapple with the huge amount of unemployment when you have huge infrastructure deficits? Will price control work? Those are the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves. I don't know if any of the plans we currently have today actually would get us out of these issues, but I don't know. If anyone has answers to that, that would be very interesting. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate that. All right, guys. So I think with let me pause your mic. Yeah. So, guys, wonderful conversations back and forth, talking about the APC action plan tagged Renewed Hope. We've looked at it critically. I've given my analysis. Lots of folks have come back. We've talked back and forth on why we like it, why we don't like it, what we want to see in it. To be clear, this is more important in quote because this is the ruling party's action plan. This is not the opposition. These are the guys that are already in power, in quote, and they should know where the pinch points are and should to say this is where we want to go going forward to take us from where we are. Nigeria's problem is stagflation, which means high inflation, high unemployment. You can add insecurity, right? And then this then causes food prices to go up. This effect is now manifested in the exchange rate, which is now about 740, 750 in the black market. But of course, locally, it's about, in the CBN, it's about 435. This circle really is the problem of Nigeria. And from this circle, you then can see low capital utilization, you can see low power supply, you can see infrastructure deficits and all that. But the macro issue right at the center, right, is this stagflation, high inflation, high unemployment issue. If you want to fix Nigeria, you've got to go right in there and say you want to fix jobs. People don't have jobs, so you want to give them jobs. But how do you fix jobs? You want to attract companies to set up businesses, not the big companies. You're talking about SMEs, people hiring 2 to 10 workers. That's the job creation in Nigeria. Why don't Nigeria have SMEs? Because the cost to do business in Nigeria is very, very high. Take a barber or take a hairdresser. You have to have a generating set to be a barber. Just think about it. If you have an idea, oh, like there are lots of kids here, I want to cut their hair and I'm going to make money every day. You can't, because you need a generating set. If you have a generating set, you need to buy diesel or petrol just to run your business. My friend owns a huge hotel. He told me the other day he's just subsidizing his hotel with his own savings. They make a lot of profit, they make a lot of sales. The entire sales goes towards buying diesel. That's it. Whatever millions they make from accommodation and food, it goes to pay diesel. He can't shut down because he doesn't lose his customers, but he's literally subsidizing his business. He's cut his staffing to the bare minimum. So imagine if you fix infrastructure for that guy. He doesn't have to buy diesel. He would employ more waiters, more cooks, more security guards, more, match days and all that. So the economy there starts to grow. This is the problem. If you want to fix this problem by employing lots and millions of people, by printing naira to just apportion to the economy, you might be diagnosing, or should we say misdiagnosing the patient. The patient has malaria. You don't want to treat the patient with a chemotherapy treatment of giving him poison to kill the malaria. Just give him chloroquine and he gets better. So I hope, like we've heard, that there's going to be more information coming down the pipe that will allow us to take more critical analysis, which is what we're doing. We're talking about this. So if you're just listening, you can pick 1 or 2 points, and that enables you to reach your decision. The whole idea is to equip you as a voter, that by February you would have heard the arguments of the APC, the PDP, and the Labour. You know exactly where they stand in terms of economic ideology. If your taxes are going to go up, you will know. If your taxes are going to fall, you would know. You will know what's going to happen to the dollar and all that. That's the whole idea of what we're doing. Look at where we are right now. We are now debating policy. We're now debating if exchange will go up. We're now debating exchange boards and commodity boards. That's what we're doing right now. And that's a good thing, guys. That's a good thing. So we want to do more of it. And we are going to do more of it. But right now, we're going to shut this baby down. Thanks, you guys, for joining and for being a part of this spaces. Once we get any other party's manifesto or plan or anything significant comes, we'll do something as well. So on this point, I'll just tell you guys, I love you all. Go get your money down for next week. It's going to be a wonderful week. Mondays are my best days of the week. You guys take care. I'll see you guys next time.